Welcome to the Cool Lifting Podcast. I'm your host, Theo, and this is your co-host, Eric. And today we have a special guest. He was a part owner of Gameday and currently a powerlifting coach of many athletes, worked with many high-level athletes. And his name is Andrew Tran. Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
I thought your name was Kevin. Is that someone else?
Kevin's another guy for official reasons. Thank you, Kevin.
Yeah, right. Okay, so we usually start the podcast by asking who you are as a person, I guess, and how you got into powerlifting. What made you want to lift heavy weights?
Hi, my name's Andrew Tran. I'm a full-time powerlifting coach, a dog dad, and just a regular guy who's just been through the journey of life, I suppose. I got into powerlifting in 2014 from track and field, and the entire purpose of going through powerlifting was simply to get better at sprinting, just because my track coach at the time was really reinforcing the idea that if you want to be a better sprinter, you have to have a lot more muscle mass and a lot more power. And the local powerlifting team in my high school had the biggest, strongest people in the entire school. So I thought, all right, let's dive deep into that and then see how much better I get into track. And then only like 10 years later, I start running again. So safe to say I kind of committed to it and quit track. It was the best decision I've made so far.
So when you started powerlifting then, were you just on your own or did you eventually get a coach or something?
The local team had a coach, his name's Ryan Wood. He got a lot of like-minded students together who just wanted to get stronger. And he came from the West Side Conjugate era, and I suppose that was what was popular in 2014, 2015. And he was an actual strength and conditioning coach. So he wasn't super ingrained in the idea that we needed to do West Side, but he was trying to expose us to a range of different training modalities in order to make sure that we're set for the remainder of our careers. And then he guided me from 2014/2015 all the way to 2017 and kind of started that journey from there.
Dang.
That sounds better than a random track coach, random football coach.
Well, to be fair, I've heard the story.
Yeah.
It's like the great thing was my track coach, the head track coach, was a former Olympian from Guyana who ran in Atlanta, I believe. So when he said, "Okay, you need to be a better sprinter, in order to do that, you have to have more muscle mass," that really ingrained in me. And so I happen to have two really good figures to help create that good starting point.
Where are you from again?
I'm from Falls Church, Virginia.
Okay, because you've known Abi for a long time.
Yeah.
Random guy. OG.
An OG.
But it's interesting because you've known that dude for like 10 years.
Was there like a like a turning point where you're like, hey, I really like powerlifting, like this is kind of what I want to do more long term then?
I think it was, this is going to be a little bit of a different answer that I initially had in my head, but I think that the reasons, if I started now, my reasons for sticking with it would be very different from back then. I started training because I want to become a better athlete and because I genuinely believe training is fun, regardless of the movement. If I was sprinting, if I was doing a power clean, if I was benching, movement in general is very enjoyable for me. And I based a lot of my commitment to powerlifting with the basis of movement is fun. And that's it.
Yeah. Okay. I think that's how a lot of people start too. Like they are doing some other sport, they really like athletics, and then they move over to powerlifting, and some people will stick with it for the long term, or it's just a seasonal thing for others. But you said you were in Virginia, so how did you work your way towards Gameday all the way in Austin?
So during that 2017 to 2021 era, I was working in a gym called Tyson's Playground, which at the time was essentially the premier powerlifting facility to go to in the DC, Maryland, Virginia area. At the time, some places were popping up, like the Shop Gym, Benefits Body Shop, Exile Fitness, but they weren't really dedicated to specifically strength sports. And I happened to work there where I met Richard Cho. He and I became friends, and then for my capstone, I was required to just find something for 400 hours for the summer of 2021 to graduate. And I really wanted to get out of Northern Virginia since I had grown up there and went to college there. And I just wanted to explore a little bit of the world. So I asked him for an internship. The guy said yes. And I moved down to Austin for what was supposed to be 4 months. And then I ended up sort of staying for basically until now.
Long summer.
Yeah.
Long summer.
That's funny.
Long
Yeah,
summer.
it worked out that way.
Oh, you want to ask the next question then? Or, because this one, I feel like.
Yeah, were you a coach before the game day internship, or was that an after the game day internship thing? Like, what came first?
I coached on and off powerlifting for a little bit. There would be I remember there would be a couple members here and there from the gym that would ask for help. And in my head, I thought, okay, so nobody else is going to help them, I might as well. And this was on and off for about 3 years, from like 2017 to 2020. But during that time, I was also a strength and conditioning coach. So I had experience with coaching football athletes, lacrosse athletes, tennis athletes in a sports academy that worked out of my gym.
Because I remember whenever game day was the first opening and popping up, I would see the photo of everyone who was there, and it'd be whoever, right, the bigger name people, and then I'd see you to the side. I'm like, who the heck is this guy? But that was like way back when it first really started.
Yeah.
Before I was even coaching.
Yeah, the advantage of the advantage of my position was I didn't know who any of the guys were before I met them, except for Richard. And I didn't know who Tim, Joe, Nico were. And I had sold Nico a day pass in my gym maybe once 2 years prior. But the rest of the people, I had no idea who they were. And I think that actually played a much better role in our relationship. And it put a lot less pressure on me to do anything that, like, out of character, if that makes sense.
Yeah, right.
So all I did was just go in, work, and I didn't really expect it to kind of become what it was now.
I gotcha. Okay, so I guess you kind of had your in with Richard Pug the Goat, which I haven't heard that name in a while. But are you close with the other, I guess, former owners, employees of Game Day?
I am. I talk to KG probably at least once a month. There's obviously a proximity bias where because I don't see them, because we don't go to the gym together, and nor do we work in the same proximity together. It's more of like we'll send a message here and there. The last time I talked to him was probably about a week ago, and then with Tim, the last time I talked to him was on Thanksgiving, and we're all kind of just living our own lives right now. I talked to Joe probably on Monday, and I talked to Nico last week, but it's all, again, proximity bias, just because.
I mean, if you're all in the same gym, then it's all like
So they all kind of
it makes sense.
spread out. Looks like.
I'm still in contact with most of them.
You're a home gym now, right?
Yeah, it's fantastic.
Full-time home
I wish
gym.
I got into that earlier. It's a lot more peaceful.
It seems. I mean, I like the game day a lot. It seemed home gym seems.
It was
very nice. I mean, all the other options.
Yeah.
I think they're all right.
But okay, I guess this kind of leads us to our next few questions here. But since there were so many coaches at Game Day, and then you mentioning how you started in 2014 until now, that's over 10 years of powerlifting, which is insane. And I've seen you work with so many coaches. So I guess you mentioned to me before you had like a couple mentors, like Bryce Lewis. Like, how did those relationships start? Were they also just gym interactions, or did you meet these people at meets? How did you make it happen?
So the beauty of like being involved with Game Day was everyone there and it might have been because I was the most unknown, was all of the members wanted to push me to be better in some form or another, and to have some form of recognition of my own skill set. And more importantly, none of them ever treated me like I wasn't an equal. And that was probably the most encouraging portion to kind of push in that journey. I started traveling a lot because Joe at the time needed some help with handling, and during that time I was also an athletic trainer. So during that time we put that all that together, and I would work on a lot of his athletes. The first one was the Arnold in 2022, and then that's how I met most of the bigger names in our business. And there would be others who I would just message because I had either seen them at a meet or had like a brief interaction with them in my gym, and I just had a great relationship with them that formed.
Okay, yeah, that's cool. And then I guess like in your own coaching system, were you looking to these people for help with your programming or anything? Like, you know, you work with Joe and Bryce. Like, did Joe help you a lot with your programming, or, you know, Bryce help you a lot with your soft skills?
Okay, that one's going to be the more complicated answer here.
Yeah.
So when I had initially started the full-time coaching career, this was back in like early 2020, and the first one to really encourage me to actually start coaching more seriously was Brad Couliard. And at the time, I don't remember if he was running the meet or if he was just very heavily involved with directing it, but he spent 25 minutes after the meet, and I just asked him a question of, hey, how do I get into coaching? And he gave me a large foundation to build off of. And he spent like a lot of time for someone he didn't know in order to create that journey. And then Joe, he and I eventually became roommates. So it was a really good dynamic where we would just shoot training ideas to each other. And one understanding we always had with each other was we came from very different backgrounds, and because of those different backgrounds, there's a different approach. And one approach isn't necessarily better than the other, but it's a different way of thinking, which was how our relationship was based in terms of learning from each other. Like within the first 2-3 weeks of meeting him, he asked me my thoughts on like different programming styles and hypertrophy. I told him how I applied it, and we just learned from each other. And whenever we would go through a problem, I would ask him a question or he would ask me a question. And it was very convenient that he and I were roommates for 2.5 years because we could ask questions nonstop.
Okay, that's crazy. I didn't know you were working with Brad Couliard.
For a good 25 minutes,
Yeah.
he set
Right.
a very good foundation, but without that conversation, he and I would not have, or I would not probably be in the space. I
Yeah.
would just probably be a regular strength and conditioning coach back in Virginia. And then, like, Joe would help me refine certain skills in programming, just because at the time, all my knowledge came from textbooks, and
Right.
like just focusing on the macro idea of things. Bryce, I had met at Chicago Collegiate Nationals in 2022, and it would just be very brief, what's up?
Yeah.
That's it. And at a certain point in late 2023, early 2024 is when I started to actually have conversations with him. One, because I actually realized who he was, because I'm still in the idea of I don't really know a lot of these powerlifters because I'm just focused on my job. And it got to a certain point where I just messaged him asking for mentorship, because my usual avenues of mentorship or learning from people all came from the same group. And just coming from my background, I've always had the understanding that if the same group convenes over and over and over again, there's going to be some form of bias in terms of information or ways of thinking. And I wanted to get out of that to make sure that I was as open-minded as possible and to make sure that all my skills were refined. And Bryce really taught me two major things that would kind of like help me with my current method of coaching. The first one was just a lot of the soft skills and athlete psychology. He would assign me homework every single week on some form of task to do, whether it's creating certain exercises, like mental exercises for athletes, see how they would react, put myself in their shoes, set drills for myself. And it really helped me understand the athlete mindset in the long term. But the most important thing that he taught me was every nuanced thing that everyone does, whether it's weighted dips, fatigue sets, understand the macro plan. In the grand scheme of things, a weighted dip or a weighted push-up or a Smith machine press is just heavy tricep and chest stimulus. It doesn't really matter how you do it, you can form it your own way. And he really emphasized that macro idea where you can be different and that's cool, but is it really that different from everything else that we're doing? And that kind of made it a lot easier to form more original ideas for myself, just focusing on the macro sense. And the most important thing that he taught me was becoming the coach I want to be, as opposed to the coach that everyone else wants me to be. And the last mentor on there was Sean Collins. He really helped me just form not only like a lot of the extra foundation that Brad had formed, but he taught me how to carry myself. One of the things that within our first 2 calls he had asked me was if someone looks at my Instagram and someone looks at his, who are they going to be more likely to contact? And at that time, I had attracted a lot of chaos, a lot of degeneracy because I was young. And he taught me how to start carrying myself and to carry myself much more professionally, but also focus on what was really important. And that was just focusing on myself and developing those skills.
Okay, yeah. I think that makes a lot of sense because when I see your Instagram now, it's, your meet updates, your athlete updates, they all look very professional. And I'm sure that's also reflected in a lot of back when Gameday was posting too.
Yeah, certainly.
So I guess for you, when you first started, was it kind of like you were struggling with these soft skills, or how did you kind of approach that? Or was that something that you felt like with your athletes, you were struggling to build like a good coach-athlete relationship? Or was it kind of like you were attracting maybe not the best type of athletes who I guess could act professional in the sense of a coach-athlete relationship? If that makes sense.
No, it makes sense. I don't think I had a problem with the soft skills, and I would actually argue that I was above the curve in those soft skills, just because in university I was involved in like teaching a lot of students and as a teacher's assistant, and what would end up happening for all those classes was I would have to kind of manage my relationship with the person because they're my age and I don't know what's going on with them. And I applied that same mindset when it came to coaching, where I don't know how to manage this power dynamic, because regardless of who you are as a coach and athlete, there's going to be some form of power dynamic. And I'm not very comfortable with that idea. I struggled with that for a very, very long time. And what eventually happened was it took a little bit of time to realize my capacity for empathy and my ability to wear certain hats or hyper-specific hats for specific athletes, whether it's the mentor, the strict coach, a big brother figure, and managing all of those aspects. But my issue was trying to navigate through my capacity for it, because at the time I was managing the gym and we were trying to build something up. And that led to a lot of personal sacrifices, unfortunately, that just led to a lot of health problems. And that, in turn, I think, kind of just cascaded on until now.
I see. Okay. Well, that's interesting.
Okay. I'm really curious about the athletic trainer background that you have, because that's not too common to see in this space, or any maybe there's a power lifter, and if for whatever reason they're told to go see their athletic trainer at their high school or college, they'd probably just say like, oh, I'm a coach, why would I do that? And my first real introduction of you was in 2021 H-Town Showdown.
Oh God.
And I had this friend named Ricky Flynn, shout out Ricky, and his erectors were like always flaring up, and I think you were like massaging his erectors or something like that. Or
Active release therapy.
yeah.
I remember.
Yeah. But that's like not really a thing in the space. So like what really did you take away from that side of things?
The beauty of being in that space was a much more intimate understanding of the human body. During that time, it was anatomy 1, anatomy 2, physiology 1, physiology 2, and they kind of just shoved it down your throat. Mm-hmm. And I was very fortunate to have a lot of teachers that were very fluid in them, and one of them was actually my high school athletic trainer, who eventually became my professor, Eric Mathis. And during that time, I think that a lot of people strayed away from athletic training, and it's still now, simply because the hours are long, the pay is really, really bad for a lot of the areas, and there's a much higher education requirement now than there was 5-6 years ago. I think you have to have a master's in order to practice now, unless you were grandfathered in. Mm-hmm. And during that time, I think a lot of people who are recommended to see the athletic trainer either have two mentalities. Either one is, it's going to go away, it'll be fine, and they fear that something is going to be diagnosed that is going to be worse than they want. Or two, they have the mentality that the athletic trainer is not a doctor, or the doctor of physical therapy, the doctor of chiropractic, or just a general practitioner, and they don't trust that because we have a 4-year degree as opposed to a 6-8 year degree or something of that sort. And I think that's one of the reasons why so many people don't go to an athletic trainer, even though they're probably the best specifically in like sports medicine. But it's also because a lot of physical therapists right now are specialized in sports medicine, probably a little bit more experience in that as well. And they have much greater resources in terms of a learning standpoint than maybe an athletic trainer with a 4-year degree.
I see. Okay. I mentioned to you this before. I have a mentorship with my coach, and I asked him the same question. But do you kind of miss, or like, did you have like a vision of being an athletic trainer for other types of athletes? Because I've seen you work on a few powerlifters at different gyms. But I guess like, was that like, do you kind of miss that aspect of working with different type of athletes, or do you still do that?
So when I had moved, I was trying to get out of the space. I had a lot of great mentors during the time and great teachers, but I had other teachers that were really like discouraging, because at the time, I think this was in 2019, I had a car accident and I was in a coma. And during that period of time there, like for that 3 days, I think I missed one of my exams, and one of my friends at the time told me that the professor said like he has to find a better excuse. And I was like, I'm in the hospital right now. You see a picture of me in there going like that. It's like, what kind of teacher are you? And this is unfortunate for every space. There's going to be the bad apples, and that kind of just led me to not really want to pursue it that much anymore. So after a lot of time, it got to a point where I was starting to explore it again with a lot of encouragement from the Gameday guys, and it started to become a thing again, and something I became a little bit more passionate about. But I don't think I would ever find myself on like a football field or anything of that sort, because during that time there was also a lot of pressure from different types of athletes, like the high school athlete who needs that D1 scholarship in order to pay for college, or hey, there's a professional player. And this was also during the time where Tyson's had a lot of great physical therapists, or 3 to be specific, who work with professional sports teams. When I would be in those spaces looking and working with them, it's like, hey, if I don't get fixed, I'm going to lose my job. And it got to a point where I don't think that I could handle the responsibility of your career's on the line based off of what I can do. And that's why I wanted to remove myself from the space.
Yeah. I could see that being a lot of pressure, especially the scenarios you said where it's like, hey, if I can't, play in these couple of matches, I'm not going to get a D1 scholarship.
Yeah. And it's not just that, but it's also when they're young, they're very, like, they're still going through puberty. They're very emotional. And the first thing that happens is a worst case scenario. And that gets rid of their buy-in into the process. And then the process gets longer. Maybe they can't walk as well. Their ACL doesn't function as correctly. And it becomes just a really dicey process of, okay, if I'm really confident in my abilities, I can get this person, and there's going to be a lot of satisfaction. But if there's any doubt in the process, this person might not function the same way, or because of a decision that I made. And especially in emergency sports medicine as well, like, people can get really hurt and they can die. And I think that was one of the processes or one of the instances of why I didn't want to go in that space again, was because you have to really react quickly under pressure. Someone might have completely destroyed their ankle and need to be shipped off to the hospital. They might have a bone sticking out. And I'm not comfortable with blood. So I was very okay with not being in that space anymore.
I see. And then I guess like powerlifting kind of fit the mold close enough where, like, coaching wise,
the bias was I happened to be in a gym with strength athletes, and that was always the beautiful portion. But on the surface level, there's no bone sticking out, but there's herniated discs, there's torn muscles. I had an athlete who just cracked their rib from switching to an SBD belt this past week. Just like, okay, cool, this is what we're going to do. And I'm much more comfortable with those, but those internal injuries are sometimes just as detrimental because they affect your day-to-day living.
Yeah, right. Like, I remember way back when I was deadlifting in 2019. It was the first time I herniated a disc, and it was like, I can't even like drive comfortably. So I feel like that's a canon event for a lot of powerlifters though, like back pain. Okay, so then I guess to finish a lot of that off, like, is there any skills you think coaches should try to improve with communicating with their clients, and, vice versa? Do you think there's anything athletes should do to help improve their relationship with their clients?
Finishing off point, that's a completely different topic.
Yeah, right. Oh, well, I guess like with the with coaching and that aspect. But
can you repeat the question?
Yeah, so is there any like skills to improve communication between like the coach and the client, or athletes can do to help improve their communication with their coach? Since you mentioned a lot of these mentorships and like the soft skills you learn from.
This is going to be a very diplomatic answer, but it depends.
Yeah.
From a coach's standpoint, it depends on 3 different things. Number 1 is how mentally and emotionally invested do you want to be in the process. Most of the time, I was a coach until earlier this year. Like, I'm going to use 3 imaginary circles here. And like, we'll use the Attack on Titan walls for an example. I think you'll know it. So the first wall here is going to be the people who don't really have that many interpersonal relationships with their athletes. They're all business, and they are very data driven, and they get those results done. The second has a much bigger door of opening with those interpersonal relationships and a greater amount of empathy, and they want to be involved a lot more emotionally and mentally in those athletes. And that's where probably 95% of coaches want to be in, where there's a decent amount of investment. It's not so much that it's potentially draining. And there's the third, which is arguably the danger zone for a lot of athletes, where you are trying to invest as much as possible in each one of them, mentally, emotionally, and that tends to be why a lot of coaches burn out in their relationships, because they're investing too much and they don't see a return, or they don't have the capacity for it. For that first circle, you don't really have a lot of range there. There you can set in systems of like check-ins, you can set in like questions and like be very specific in that approach. In that second circle, you got a little bit more room, but it also depends on the level of empathy that you want to have. And that determines if you're in that second or third circle. If you have a large level of empathy and you want to still maintain that, be in that third circle. Because most coaches are going to tell you, be in that second circle. Don't forget that this is a business. I've heard that hundreds of times from I don't know how many coaches of, why are you doing this? They're your client. They're not like they're paying you for the service. And it just depends on how much you want to invest in that with that level of empathy. Where there was one athlete who, oddly enough, I think I'm having lunch with him next week. He and I have an amazing relationship. I know his family. I was with him through his divorce and going through that process. Another athlete, I attended the funeral with his father, and I stayed with him for 2 weeks to make sure that he was all right. What coach normally does that? And that's the level of like commitment that you're going to have to set a range on with that communication, where it depends on how much you want to be invested in. Is it just the training, or is it into the athlete as a human being?
Right.
And that's just dependent on how much you want to be invested in, your capacity to do that, and the level of empathy that you have. And once you determine all that, you can pretty much find the answers for yourself. Right. Because certain coaches, I might be willing to go to Pennsylvania to take care of one of my guys because he's going through a family loss for a month and then travel back to Austin. But what other coach is going to do that? Probably not. But this other person might be, okay, I'm going to fly across the country for you, and I'll fly across the world for you, and I'll stay with you for 2 months, and let's do this. But it just depends on how much you want to commit. But those skills are set with how much you're willing to give in. With the athlete, it also depends on similar but very different factors. Number one is, what is the power dynamic between yourself and your coach? Are you friends? Are you friendly? Do you look up to them in a very specific manner or put them on a pedestal? And depending on that is going to determine what type of skills you need to improve upon. Like certain people just need to provide base information. Certain people need to be a lot more specific to what they're doing from a life-to-life standpoint. And again, like it depends on which circle you guys are in, where if it's the third, I can probably tell them that like, okay, I'm not sleeping super well because of this factor, this factor, this factor. But one of the problems I find in that third circle is you don't just become their coach. You become this very specific hat that you're wearing for them, whether it's the big brother, the uncle, the mentor, something of that sort. And you almost become a life coach, which I don't necessarily think is wrong, but it crosses a boundary that the first and the second circle will never cross. And with those athletes, it just depends on whether or not, like, what you're willing to disclose, and if you're really thinking of, like, are certain things affecting your training more than others, and give it genuine thought. Like sleeping habits, study habits, emotional response, drinking, something of that sort. A lot of people don't ask those questions because there's a silent understanding that, hey, you should probably maintain this super well. But not a lot of people want to be the villain and say, yeah, I'm not really sleeping, sorry. right? Or I have at least a few drinks a day. Sorry. Nobody's going to be upfront about that, but it's just depending on how honest you want to be, how forthright you want to be. And I don't think that's a skill, that's just more of a level of willingness of communication. And depending on who the coach is, they will tell you this is good information, this is unnecessary information, anything in this particular topic, it's unnecessary, maybe let's not visit that again.
Right.
And that will be a sign of a great coach-athlete relationship because you're setting a standard for each other.
Right.
Does all that make sense?
Yeah, no, it did. Because we talked a little bit about that in our last episode where, like, you need to be able, like, as a coach, you need to either open up the capacity for your athlete to share this information with you. Because there's going to, like, some people are afraid of disappointing their coach, like you're saying. And you might need to be more upfront of, like, hey, like, it's okay to tell me those things. Like, I'm not going to be upset at you. Like, we just need the data for it. And then I guess, like, the next layer would be like, oh, like, why do you do these things? You know, what's happening in your life?
If I may provide like a little bit of devil's advocate, I haven't listened to the podcast, so forgive me here. An athlete is only going to, or one of the easiest ways to open up that door is to have that two-way street of, I'm upfront with you as your coach, and I have that expectation that you're going to be forthright with me, because and that's the open door policy I tend to have, where if I go through shit, my athletes are going to know. It's like, hey, I'm going to a funeral today. I'll get back on Saturday. The work will be done by then. And just like, you don't need to reveal that, but it's just like, hey, there's things that are going on, because I think that one of the reasons why a lot of athletes aren't communicating with their coaches, it isn't just because of the fear of disappointment, but it's the view that the relationship is going to be changed in some dynamic because they're being vulnerable. But the coach themselves, again, this depends on the coach and their dynamic they want to have with their athlete. If they're more forthright with what's going on, it tends to create a little bit more of a positive reaction of, hey, I'm comfortable with sharing with him because he's sharing with me or she's sharing with me.
Right.
And that tends to be a little bit of a better dynamic, but that's also why it's important to see what hat you're wearing with the athlete, where if you're a mentor, and you've established that mentor relationship, you probably don't really need to know that much about, this person, I have a bad relationship with them because they called me a name or something of that sort. But if it's a big brother relationship or big sister relationship, whatever specific hat, that discerns different levels of what you can reveal and what you're comfortable with. And that depends on that hat you wear. But not all coaches have that large level of empathy to be able to wear so many different hats and hyper-specific hats.
Right.
But, and the last thing I like to note is, with that relationship or about communication, one of the things I feel like a lot of athletes don't tend to do is look at the coach as a person, and they just look at it as the role. And one of the things I've always been a very good advocate or big advocate of, and again, this is my mindset. If you look at Marcellus or you look at David as he's a person, or there are people who have real life problems, it tends to have a much more positive effect in sharing things. It's like, hey, they're not someone on this pedestal, they're a human being. And once you have that understanding and put them almost not as much on the pedestal, it becomes a little bit less pressurizing for the athlete to share information like, hey man, I want to be honest with you, I went through a breakup. Like, this is how it's going to affect this process. And that's it.
Yeah. No, that's really good. I completely agree with what you're saying, especially with that last bit, because Marcellus, he posts a lot of stuff about being a father and his life stuff. So it's easy to be like, oh, maybe I shouldn't overshare here because he's probably dealing with a lot of stress. Like, he's not sleeping that much. He's told me stuff like that. So I do feel that more human side of him versus when I started, it was definitely like,
yeah,
this is the goat of coaches.
Do I want to reveal this?
Yeah,
we both know.
Don't cancel me.
our coaches for a pretty
Yeah.
good while,
True.
like for multiple years, and at that point, it's also just like, hey, we've known each other for multiple years. Like the stuff has been revealed here and there on both ends, whether it's good or bad, and. But the first like couple months of coaching, it's a little more
robotic.
Yeah, yeah. Then it kind of dives into that.
Well, I think that it becomes robotic because of that pressure, but also it depends on the expectation
like
that the coach sets. Like, if you say right off the bat, it's like, all right, cool, I'm gonna do this. It's like, okay, cool. You kind of set the tone for the relationship. You don't have to be robotic, and I think that a lot of athletes who start out a relationship with their coach, it's always like, oh, this is exciting, getting a new coach, a new pair of eyes. I can't screw this up. But if the coach and the athlete set that expectation of like what type of relationship they're going to have, it's like, that's fine. And that actually probably works out a little bit better for a lot of people. But one thing I just don't like is when someone expects to be friends with their coach. Because a good coach athlete will get both people from point A to point B. A great coach-athlete relationship may result in friendship, but it will result in a lot more respect for each other.
That's a good way to put it. Okay. So I'm going to bring it back a little bit with, you working at Gameday and, I guess you were also going to school, interning, right? Or like you were doing school and interning for Gameday.
For the summer of 2021.
Yeah, right. And then I guess like eventually you worked at Gameday full time, and you also became a full time coach. And also, like on your recent post, like I think you said you went to like 197 meets or something, or
helped 197 athletes.
Helped
went to
26
meets.
26 meets.
Yeah.
So I saw like it seems like you spread yourself out a lot. Like you have a high work capacity. Do you have any tips for like?
Real quick with this, do you feel like now that you're not Gameday just because all of that, are you even?
They closed.
They closed. Yeah.
It's okay.
Are you even like? Is this even that much of an issue anymore?
Yeah, like being
that's what I'm
super
curious
busy.
about. Yeah, because like the whole situation has changed.
Yeah.
Like now versus then, because I'm sure still busy, but is it as busy, aka like spreading yourself thin versus just being plain busy?
Yes and no. Again, a lot of diplomatic answers. Because when the gym existed, there was a very different schedule where I had, as opposed to just getting back to my clients, it was also getting back to the members. It was also managing the facility, which was 14,000 square feet. And like the first location was in an old warehouse, which needed to be cleaned very, very, very often. There was keeping members happy, but there was also managing that relationship with the members going into from a day-to-day basis, whether it's, hey, we've become friendly, or but also reminding myself they're also a paying member. And that's why we're still talking about those circles there, where that's where everything became a little bit weird, where I would spend a lot of time with those people, and that's why the schedule was a little bit more convoluted. But I would argue that I'm just as busy, but they're just busy from different manners. When Gameday existed, there was a numerous amount of issues I had with my own self. One was 3 years ago, I was young. I was very naive in thinking that I was indestructible, and then that created a large amount of issues with my own personal health and my own scheduling, where I think on average I worked, and this is including my previous gym too, and like during that time I was doing TA plus the gym, like 80-hour weeks, and I did that for 8 years going into July of this year. And I don't have to go to a physical location, I just have to respond to clients. And this brought a very big opportunity to travel and to be able to be there for my team and to be able to stand up with them. But I don't have to, when Gameday existed, cleaning the toilet, cleaning this piece of equipment, did the day shift do their job? And I think there's just a lot of different pressure where in my head, I'm trying to pay my bills with coaching. And if someone didn't do their job, I wouldn't say anything. I would just go in to the facility at 2 a.m. and clean or fix this one aspect. And then everyone would see on my stories because I would post about it frequently, like, hey, this is done. Or just like post like a speed reel of me like cleaning up this, like the turf or...
I like the speed reels.
Yeah, there was probably hundreds of them over the last like 4 years, 5 years.
Fixing water fountains and stuff.
Yeah, you get very, very creative and your skill set really expands, but it's a different type of busy. But I'm busier in the sense that I get to travel a lot more and I don't resent traveling anymore because I'm not thinking in the back of my head, okay, the gym's going to burn down by the time I get back. And I don't have to answer like these random phone calls, random emails, because my phone number used to be the gym phone. So when I was at a meet, it's like, hey, I'm interested in a day pass. Like, okay, this is what you can do. This is the process. You know, if you head to this location right now, this person will take care of you. I remember doing that at Chicago Collegiate Nationals and just multitasking on that. But that's the answer to your question. To answer yours, Theo, there's 3 different things, both from a coach, or I'll kind of separate between coach and athlete, and with the same macro ideas. The first is that you need to address that there's a problem. If you feel like you have too much load, something is deficient somewhere or something isn't efficient. Is it you have too much workload or not enough time? If that's the case, you can't really get that much more time. That's the most finite thing. What you can do is be more efficient, or identify what's really getting in the way of you getting those tasks done or your workload done. Because most people, at least in my opinion, when they're in that scenario, they think, I need to reduce the workload. It's like, okay, that's probably not going to happen anytime soon. Let's be realistic, where, you know, a student might have midterms and then they have projects after that, and then they have finals and they have internships and they have job searching and they have all that pressure. The workload will never get easier. And my thinking is, okay, if there's a systemic problem with your workload, there's something you have to look at. Are you efficient at your time management, or are you efficient at doing the tasks? If not, become more efficient and figure it out some way. And I think that a lot of people, when they're dealing with their workloads, they don't have a lot of sense of urgency when it comes to finishing a lot of the tasks, where, oh, I need to study for this test. I have 2 weeks. And then they have the sense of urgency at the last minute, but they have the sense of urgency of dedicating 30 minutes a day. It's probably going to be a little bit better, or a lot better. So the first thing is identifying or addressing that there is a problem and saying, this is not okay, and I need to start going through these things. The second is just having respect for yourself and boundaries with yourself and others. One of the things I see a lot of people who are very overloaded with tasks, and I have to say that I'm the poster boy of doing this. Like, what person would willingly work 80 to 100 hour weeks for 8 years? Not a lot of people. And it comes to a time where I would say yes to every single task, yes to every social event, with the fear of missing out. And at a certain point, I just had to kind of think to myself, if I keep saying yes, I'm adding to my problem. And one thing that really resonates with me is the saying, if you piss in your bed, you gotta sleep in it too. I didn't want to have the mindset of like, oh, the world's against me. Like, I don't know why this is happening. This is my fault. But how do I stop enabling that problem from happening over and over and over again? So I started saying no to certain things, like, hey, I have an hour to study for this one thing or to reply to clients in this aspect. An hour's an hour, no more, no less. And once that hour popped up, I was done. And I think a lot of people don't set boundaries with themselves, where they tend to overextend a task or underextend a task, or not spend a lot of time like with really a lot of effort and how those are distributed. And the same deal with athletes, where they say yes to a lot of social events if they're in college, or drinking, or hey, I got to go traveling. It's like, there's obviously a lot of luxuries, and that's part of being a human being. But if you have a certain amount of things that you need to do, then you need to do them. Whether it's studying, homework, graduation, like paying rent, those are things are not optional in the roles that you play in your life. So that's the second thing, of just setting boundaries for yourself and really adhering to those boundaries. If you're going through a diet and you want to lose weight, you can't just say, hey, yes, to every single person who says, hey, let's go out to eat. You need to actually have some boundary for yourself and say no until the task is done or you feel that you're satisfied with the task. The third one is just being time efficient. I think that's probably one of the more underrated skill sets that probably are going to benefit everyone in the macro of their life, where if they set a specific schedule for themselves, and I'm not saying be a robot, I'm just saying if you know certain things are ahead of time, like you have an assignment due in 2 weeks, spend half an hour each day at a specific time working on that with intention. You're probably going to get it done in a week before it's due. And same deal with studying. If, like, how many of our athletes between the three of us have said, I can't do this session, I need to study for my midterms? In my head, I have to think, why aren't you ready? You learned this content already, and it's because you're cramming and you didn't bother reviewing it for 20 minutes per day. And if it's really a topic that you're struggling with, you need to take more time with it. You need to allocate more time with it. And it's the same deal with training, where my training sessions are too long. Are they 4 hours because they're really taking 4 hours? Or is it because you're taking 20-minute rest periods and yapping? And that's also kind of like tied in with like having boundaries with yourself, where you need to tie both of them together to get more time for yourself. Because time is the one aspect nobody is going to get back. So being time efficient and managing your time well is probably going to benefit you for the rest of your life. And then I think the last thing is just treating yourself like as a human being. And it sounds really crazy, because I think a lot of the juniors and sub juniors are probably in this demographic, where how many of our athletes have said, oh, I did this weight, I had 3 hours sleep, or I did this on 4 hours of sleep, or I did this fasted.
They're impressing us.
Yeah, it's just like, it seems to be a badge of honor. And I remember, like, based off how I was brought up in the sport, it used to be a badge of honor of how much you suffered. And in my head, I kind of view it as, okay, so you're going to feel like shit tomorrow. You're going to be complaining about this tomorrow. But also, if you keep enabling this habit, you're going to develop a lot of health problems later down the road, or mental health problems down the road. And I say this because I'm the poster boy for it. Like, for 4 years, I had 4 or 5 hours of sleep a night. And then I had extreme memory loss. I can't really remember that much 2022, to be honest, because of how sleep deprived I was. And it just gets to the point where I wasn't treating myself like a regular human being should. They teach you in school, you need 8 hours. You probably need 8 hours. You need to prioritize that. Same deal with eating. And if you get all those basic things down, not just to survive, but live as a person, you're probably going to be more efficient at your workloads and be able to finish all of it. The beauty of working those 80, 100-hour weeks was I built a lot of character, and that contributes to why I have such a big workload. But you combine that with, I get at least 7 hours of sleep a night. I eat 6 meals a day. Like, I eat a lot of food that are very nutritious, and I take time, at least an hour for myself every single day. I'm not like go on the road all the time. I'm happier and I'm much more efficient at everything. And I think that if we inspire the newer generation of doing these basic things, they're going to be more efficient at their time, they're going to be stronger, they're going to be healthier, and the world won't seem to be kind of falling down around them.
Yeah. No, that's really good, because the reason why I wanted to ask this question was literally what you said, where it's like, oh, like, I might have to miss a session or move it because, like, I got to study or whatever. And then there's a lot of people like you that I look at, I'm like, you know, I shouldn't compare everyone, but I was like, there's some people who have like a really high capacity to work, and then they also get their sessions in, but they also seem like they're getting a lot of shit done.
And they also hit a 7-kilo PR on their squat.
Yeah,
after everything.
A meet.
Sometimes you gotta have that dog.
Yeah,
I say this very sincerely here. A lot of it is generational. Like, I think that the generation of athletes that are brought on today were not brought up the same way we were, and like that has to do a lot with family dynamics. Like my parents are immigrants that came in to like and worked really hard, and I saw them work hard a lot when I was growing up. Same deal with my brother. And I have to think to myself here where the newer generation they have a different upbringing. They were brought up with the internet when it was efficient, not when you couldn't pick up the phone while the internet was working. And they have technology, and they have also like there's different parenting values and such. And I think that at a certain point there, we got lost in let's make everything efficient for the kid, and that kind of leads to a certain mindset. Whereas like in ours, like things weren't efficient. We had to work a little bit harder in certain avenues, and that does kind of lead to a slightly different culture. But the lifters before us, super hardcore. And I think that that's always going to be a cascading tree down, where the generation before us always worked harder because they did have it harder. And the generation after us is always going to have more information, and they're going to have things a little bit easier. But it's just about, like, we all have different ways of solving the problem. We're just a little bit ahead of the curve compared to the next generation. And the people who don't, or who have bigger workloads right now, one of the commonalities is two things. Either one, they're older, or two, they've been through a really shitty life or a really hard life because of some form of unfortunate circumstance, whether it's family dynamics, being laid off. And like a lot of the workload that I have came from, if I don't do this, I'm going to starve to death. Like in 2022, like 2021 to 2022, and this is when I initially met you, I was 128 pounds because I was eating bread, I was eating eggs, some chicken thighs, and bananas for a year. And there comes a time and place where it's just, I have that workload because I have that fear of, I might not be able to pay rent. But I'm not going to wish that again onto the next generation in order to increase their workload. Like, circumstances of desperation do create character and how you react to it. But, you know, there are certain, like everyone else who has a bigger workload has either a similar situation in terms of direness, or they're just older and they had more time to develop that workload. Like there's very few people who are below the age of 23 that I'm aware of, except for maybe a small hand of people that have the same workload as me or similar. And that's not a badge of honor. Like that's not a badge of honor. I need to clarify this. That's not a badge of honor. You can be hardworking, but you don't need to put it in everyone's face. Like, having a great workload and work capacity is great, but it can also be the detriment of your physical and emotional health as well.
Yeah, because you can also miss out on a lot of life if you're always focused on the grind, I guess.
I mean, if I may be transparent, and like the entire, like, I want to be transparent as much as possible on this podcast. I worked 80 to 100 hour weeks for 8 years. I can't really remember 2022. Like, I don't know, like, I can't remember a lot of it. I can't remember a lot of the relationships I formed in those moments because I was so stressed out, and it quite literally created like irreparable health issues. Like, I can't remember a lot of these things. My blood pressure at the time was like 168 over, I forgot what the diastolic was, but it was 168, and I was 22, 23. What kind of 22-year-old, 23-year-old has that type of blood pressure where they're about to have a heart attack any time? I would have heart palpitations, and then I would have to go to the hospital. And it got to the point where like my kidneys don't function as well. My digestive system doesn't work as well. My brain probably aged an insane amount because of it. And I see that a lot of like students and younger athletes are in this, like they're either in two camps here. They're either they want to go for the grind, and like I note that a lot of people who are going for the grind and they make it through, that's great. That's going to benefit you in the long term, and it's always hard. It always pays off to be hardworking. But a lot of the people who go through the grind for no fucking reason, I don't know if I can curse or not.
And curse as much as you want.
They go through the grind for no fucking reason other than vanity. They tend to have the most health problems that I've seen. They have the worst mental and emotional reactions to small things. And again, that was me. I used to be known as like, is Andrew in a good mood today? Like I remember a member had to like set me aside. I was like, I don't know what's going on, but like I don't know if you're okay. Like some days you're really good and some days you look like you want to shoot yourself. And I'm really worried about that. And that was all my peers, where you're getting 4 hours of sleep for this many years. It changes your brain chemistry. I didn't know how to react to a lot of situations or handle a lot of situations that probably weren't as bad as they could have been. And it took a long time to accept the idea that I need to take a step back, to be more efficient with my time, and to just prioritize myself as a human. My old school mentality was nobody else is going to do it. And I would like take the hose out of someone's hand and say, let me do it. You go fuck off. Like do whatever you want. And then it got to the point where I wasn't investing in the people that were around me either. It was always I need to do this myself mentality. You create that cyclical issue, sleep deprivation, extreme stress, work, and like probably a workaholic tendency, you're going to ruin a lot of your body, your mental health, and probably some relationships that you could have maintained. And that's one of the problems I had. One of the issues I see a lot of students doing is when they do take on first workload, what's the first thing that gives out? Sleep. It's like, okay, you can probably memorize that content much more efficiently if you had more than 2 hours.
Studies on that.
Yeah.
And it's just like, your brain is still developing. Your brain isn't going to be developed as healthily. And it's the same deal with like eating. Like if you eat like shit all the time, it's probably going to affect how you feel all the time. And also quite literally, it affects your intelligence, especially as you grow up. And I didn't do that for a long time. And it gets to a point where you have to think to yourself, is it worth it? But you don't want to change until it's too late. And it became too late, and that's why I had to change everything. But that workload, that high workload, is a blessing, but it's also a curse. I don't ever want to wish someone to be able to work 80 and 100-hour weeks. The ability to, sure, without many complaints. But to be forced to do that over and over and over again, which I feel like a lot of students especially are doing now because they're not great at time management or they choose not to be, you're going to go through the same road. And I'm 26 and I have like, I only recently lowered my blood pressure down to the 140s, but like 4 years of high blood pressure damages your organs. I'm sorry to say this, and it sucks a lot. That's one thing workload that I wish I never did. I got a lot done and I got a lot accomplished, don't get me wrong. Like a lot done.
Yeah.
But I probably could have been a lot more efficient at it.
Right.
If I slept. It's crazy. Crazy concept.
Right. Oh, that definitely sounds like really bad, obviously. But
I mean, it was pretty bad.
Okay, go ahead.
Oh no, I was going to finish it off with just like, workload is a privilege, but you can manage. You choose what you do with your workload.
Right.
You can be efficient with it. You can choose to lower it. You can choose to add on to it. But at the end of the day, if you piss in your bed, you have to sleep in it too. Nobody's going to go save you because a lot of the workload tends to be in your own decisions. At least from like, I'm not saying anything from like a job standpoint, because there's obviously people who have a lot of projects, deadlines, like I'm excluding that. But everything else, like training, studies, like I'm not going to dumb down that certain subjects are really difficult, but you also have the choice of, I want to allocate 20 more minutes to this a day, but if you don't, you're pissing in your own bed.
Right.
I feel like I'm targeting students especially a lot in this one, but
I mean, that's a big powerlifting demographic.
Yeah.
Right.
A lot of them are students.
But what I was gonna say is like that sounds really bad, and then on top of this, you were training. And like I'm sure that was really affecting your
I think
training.
I know why your training is starting to go better.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, it was like
I'm sure there's other reasons too, but
yeah, my training back then was really bad because I just wasn't. When I was coached by Charlie Yang, one of the things that he would always emphasize was like kind of being human. And that's one of the principles I still follow to this day, where, hey, just chill the fuck out, man.
Yeah.
Like, you don't have to be super neurotic on this. There are certain moments that I thought, okay, maybe this could have a little bit more analysis, but you focus on that macro setting, which I think a lot of people don't do well. I had a lot of injuries because I wasn't sleeping. I had, if I counted correctly, because I had an athlete ask me this last week, in the last 5 years, I've had 13 injuries.
have fun.
Yeah. I mean, great, like a lot of it wasn't like a lot of it was in training, and a lot of it wasn't in training. Like I had the bar dumped on me 4 times, so like, obviously
That's probably just
that's
like,
4 of them.
work at a gym.
Yeah.
But the
That's a little something.
and then when I was with Sean Collins, he understood. He didn't encourage it though, and that's that. Like Sean really helped me get a lot of my shit together when it came to
That's
that.
a good way to put it. Understood, but didn't encourage it.
And like there are certain aspects where like training was going well. It was the times I had my shit get together the most, and it's the macro idea that I wanted to kind of focus on for a lot of people, where they like if you get your shit together, if you eat, you sleep, you tend to probably produce a much better athlete. But I think to answer your question, why my training's going so much better, I think I told you this, but I didn't tell you this. In November, or sorry, not November, last year during that July, August period of time, I was having a lot of gut health issues. And I didn't realize I had those issues until PA Nationals earlier this year. And I had to, there would be some certain days where I would shoot up 8-9 pounds overnight for no reason. And I would have insane inflammation throughout the entirety of my body. And I was convinced I had some form of autoimmune disease. So when I was talking to a friend of mine, Stephen Pham, about a lot of these different things, the first thing that he suggested was get a stool sample and like get a GI map. And he also helped me push a lot of just becoming healthier aspects. So I got the stools or the GI map, and a lot of my gut bacteria was just terrible. Like it was, I couldn't process things correctly. I wasn't absorbing a lot. I was holding a lot of water, and a lot of the foods I was eating, I wasn't actually absorbing. And I would have extreme amounts of weight fluctuations. I went into PA Nationals weighing in at 157. I weighed in at 163 because I had a flare up in my gut the night before. And after that, I just became a lot more health conscious of, I need to fix my gut health. And one of the themes that I kind of push onto a lot of my athletes right now is the importance of nutrition. I think I was pretty good back then, but I wasn't as efficient as I was now, where I spent 3 months rebuilding that entire biome, whether it's prebiotics, probiotics, fiber. Like there would be certain days where I'd fast for about 24 hours just to kind of clear out the inflammation. And I rebuilt it up to now where it's a lot more efficient. And the other thing I did was I got a blood test. I saw that like I had a lot of really bad health markers, and I started taking care of all those markers to improve my body. And it's just like it kind of, again, kind of from that macro idea I was discussing before of, if you're a healthier person, you tend to become a better athlete, whether it's sleeping, eating, nutrition, what have you. And these are very low-hanging fruit that most athletes choose not to do. And they can probably add 20, 30, 40 kilos more to their totals if they're just healthier. I'm not just talking from an injury standpoint, but just biologically. And I managed all that, became healthier. I have a lot more of a jawline now. I can gain weight. Like, I have the ability to actually gain weight that's not water weight. And I remember when I met you, mewing all the time because I was 128 pounds, and now I have the ability to actually absorb food. So that was one of the major contributors. And the second one was I actually prioritized being an athlete in a little bit of a greater manner here, where for a long time, I think that because the gym and coaching are all in the same world, you tend to have a very discouraging view of, do I really want to do this? And this isn't very well known, but I retired for like 6 weeks. Like, after PA Nationals, I didn't touch any weight unless it's to clean up the gym for 6 weeks.
What were you doing? Just
I
physical activity? Or
I was walking my dogs, and that was it. Like, I was reading, and I was doing a lot to just improve other aspects, but I was convinced that I just didn't want to do this anymore. Because after doing it for 11 years, you own a gym, you also coach a numerous of athletes, you tend to have like a very discouraging idea of what's going on, especially with like how much pressure Gameday had put. Hey, you have to pay rent. Hey, we have to take care of however many hundreds of members. Or the Eleiko rack broke. It's like, it gets very, very discouraging. And once the gym had closed, I'd argue that like a lot of the manual labor loss was definitely a huge contributor, but I was able to switch a lot of my views of training of, I just want to be able to move. If I bench, I bench. If I do a dip, I do a dip. And then that entire mindset kind of just changed a lot to help with training. So I got healthier, I started approaching training a lot differently. And then, like, I'm fucking jacked, man. Like, I'm a lot healthier. And it's funny because I saw your reel about not taking a break. It's like, well, sometimes, like, it's obviously I'm a very hyper-specific demographic, but sometimes taking that break really can help, but it only helps if you have a plan. I was going to take 6 months off, not 6 weeks. And then Tim was trying to make a comeback to powerlifting for the 4th time. And he did an SBD day. I was like, all right. I texted John Song, hey, I think I'm ready to get back to powerlifting. Like, after seeing this Tim, and then he just like does the eye emoji. I would need to find the message. And like John was a really big contributor to my training as well, where I don't do anything else. But I think also one of the reasons why I wasn't training as well, besides the work 100-hour weeks, was one of the things that I do think really helps is when you have excitement of the new coach, which helps to a large degree, but I just turn my brain off now. I don't try to have any input anymore on my own training, because I think that was one thing I did with my previous coaching relationships. And I think that in turn also kind of does tend to sour a lot of relationships as well.
Yeah, the buy-in is like 100% right now. Like, you're just like, I don't want to think about the problem solving.
Yeah. I don't want to say like the buy-in's 100%, or it's just like, Sean had taught me this along, or my first week. He like tore into me. It's just, he told me, I can feed into your like we can do this, and I can feed into your neuroticism, or you can let me do my job. Pick one. All right, I want to pick one, and you know, eventually he and I became a lot more collaborative in my own training. And then with John, it's very, here's some videos, here's some voice notes, I'm out, I'm done. Because I've matured enough now to say, he's my coach, I need him to do his job, and if he feels like he's doing anything incorrectly, I can just tell him, like, I feel like I'm not getting this, and then just leave it at that, not be involved in my own training. That was one of my own pitfalls in my own self, where I was too involved in my own training. This is the first time in a while that I haven't.
That's something I've done with my training. I wouldn't say I was too involved, but as I've gotten more athletes, it's like there's work, there's me being at the gym, and then there's time of me thinking about my training. I'm like, well, I can just have my coach do that for me. I don't really want to do that as much, or like trying to figure things out. He'll figure it out. Yeah, I'll tell him what I need to.
Yeah, it's I feel like coaching a coach is always a nightmare. And like during that time, like it wasn't until about 6 months ago where I think I matured as an athlete myself, because I always had the coaching mind of, we could do this a little bit better, we could do this other better. But in the grand scheme of things, I probably shouldn't have been doing that in the first place. You know, I probably would have had a much different journey and matured a lot faster if I had just said, let me do your stuff. This is it. And also invested in the other things like sleeping. And like I have to take a lot of that personal responsibility on why I wasn't as good of an athlete, because I made decisions, I pissed in my own bed, and I slept in it. Like I probably could have done so much more to become a much better athlete, but I chose not to prioritize work or what I deemed to be important at the time. And I had to take 100% responsibility, as with every athlete, but it took me a long time to fully accept that. Which I think is a very important thing for athletes to do.
Right. Okay. Okay. I guess we can move on to more like nitty-gritty type coaching questions.
Yeah, go
athletes.
Ahead. Bring it on.
All right. So a lot of people might not know this, because I guess you mentioned to me this in like a conversation we had in the gym, but you actually helped Austin Perkins with his bench program. I guess, like, when was this? And what was the problem he was having, and how did you approach fixing it?
So, just like I kind of said before, Joe and I would always shoot training ideas with each other. During that time in 2023 for Nationals in Nashville? Yeah, Nashville. Or no, Memphis.
Okay.
The one in Tennessee.
Yeah, Memphis.
Joe and I were very, very, we talked a lot about training concepts. I asked him for a lot of help, and there were times where he would ask a lot of my inputs there. And during that time, I think that Austin's bench didn't really have like the same pop as like squatting or deadlifting. And this was like the way I kind of approach trying to help others is, this is an idea, if you apply it, great. That's your own prerogative. And because I'm not one to try to take credit, I'm helping my friend. In this case, I'm helping two of my friends. This was a very aggressive bench idea, like 3 different types of singles a week, but at the time, he kind of just needed that heavier exposure because bench was just not making that same level of a pop. And I think at the time also, like, Austin's life was getting a lot better. Like, he met his, he was having his relationship with Sid, his wife. Things were starting to flourish up for him. He had recovered from the hernia, and like things were really looking up. So all these different factors kind of led into it, but the bench just wasn't popping. I suggested the idea. I think we were at Buzzmill Coffee at like 2 a.m. He like puts a screen and is like, "Hey, what do you think about this?" I give him an idea. he just does what he wants with it. Because it might have, like, I might throw off different ideas. He doesn't have to take it. That's the only idea that I'm aware that he took, and like applied it. But he's Joe for a reason. He can apply those, like, the hyper specific details of what he needs to. It's just, here's an idea. You can apply it however you want. And I'm thankful that he took it.
Yeah. Okay. That's awesome. So I guess it was just taking different single, like if he had like 3 benches, I'm not sure how much he benched at the time.
I'm not entirely sure either.
Yeah.
I think for me it was just, why don't you just bench heavy 3 times a week?
Yeah. Okay. I was just thinking because like now, I think that was in 2023 and like taking multiple singles is now more popular. So I guess you were kind of like a pioneer of that since it reflected in his training, probably trickled down to us. But
I don't want to say like pioneered, because in you have to consider this. It's Austin.
right.
He's the best pound for pound powerlifter of all time. And a lot of his life was getting a lot better, and especially from a recovery standpoint. So, and he was happier.
Yeah.
So when you put all those circumstances together, he can recover from an immense amount of work, probably anything that you ever give him. So the idea of benching 3 times a week heavy was not far-fetched for me, because he's the best for a reason.
Yeah. Right.
And conventional, in my head, conventional means are not going to get the job done. And he can do it. He's Austin.
Yeah.
Like, great dude. I love him. But he's so hardworking. And that comes first before the genetics. Like, if you train with him, you'll understand exactly what I mean by he's hardworking. And then he has great leverages, great genetics, and his life's great now.
Yeah.
But during that time, you can recover from it. It wasn't a far-fetched idea for me anymore. But right now, I feel like a lot of people can need those heavier bench exposures, just because I don't think it's because they can necessarily handle it. I think it's more, especially for the younger crowd, psychological reasons rather than anything else.
Right. Okay.
Not sure if that's a hot
What
take.
do you mean by psychological reasons? I'm curious.
So when this can apply for squatting, benching, or deadlifting. And like, I think a lot of the bias in powerlifting is if you push intensity too hard, you're going to break. And that's going to be true if you do it for too long of an extended period of time. But I think for a lot of people, bench, because that tends to be the lowest thing that adds onto the total. And it also ranges probably a lot more arguably with the technique compared to squatting or deadlifting ever will, because of leg drive, thoracic mobility, arm width, like all that. It comes with like a little bit of a greater ability to be malleable. And I think that a lot of people just need to bench heavy to feel confident on bench, and it doesn't seem to apply that much commonly as like squatting or deadlifting. I feel like because there's the idea of someone can get guillotined with the bench, that they just feel like they need that for like psychological comfort.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
But like squatting or deadlifting is just like,
It's a
like, hey, I know that this is going to have a huge recovery cost. I'm just not going to do it. But bench, you can recover from it systemically a lot quicker.
Yeah. Right.
yeah. I think a lot of people can handle it for the most part
Yeah.
Yeah.
if they have good technique and all that.
Technique,
It makes sense.
leverages,
There's-
recovery,
There's a lot of stuff,
Yeah.
but yeah.
Right. Okay. So were there any other coaches that you helped with, their athletes who are, I guess, higher profile that people might not know about?
I think I helped with Angelo's squat for a little bit of time. I mean, this was when he was still coached by Joe. It wasn't programming, but it was a little bit of technique work.
Oh, is this when he was having that neck pain, or is this separate to that?
This was separate to that. I think this was in 2022. I had randomly went to Iron Sight, and I went to go. I just went there and I worked on him, and we were going over some of his squat pattern, like that very briefly. I've always been in the mindset of like, if their coach is a friend, here's an I because I'm in there in person. Here's a suggestion. So there was like a fair amount of that. I've helped with a few others, not necessarily higher profile, but just a few other coaches of like different ideas. Like there's been a couple times where Josh Hall's messaged me on like an idea on certain things. I think I messaged Matt Holden after SBD Austin, like, hey, can I make a suggestion for Josh's bench? Because like I want him to succeed so much, but his bench just isn't benching. It's like, here's an idea, and we would go over like certain training concepts, but I don't know if they ever applied it. It's always like, hey, here's an idea. I don't need to be
Seems like a good way to go.
Yeah, like you're just giving them a tool at that point. They can decide to use it if they want.
Not this is what I think you should do.
Yeah, it's just like, hey, this is an idea, here you go. But it's because like they're the coach for the reason. They have to be able to apply it in that macro. But if I can help a friend in some manner, I will. And I think there's a few coaches that have asked me for that help, but the only other person I can think of, which I don't really know if anything was ever applied, was Kwaku. Do you guys know who Kwaku is?
I don't know who that is.
The name sounds familiar, but
He's the 59 kilo. He goes to Princeton. I don't know if he graduated from Princeton. Hi, Kwaku. He's coached by TSG. He just competed at SBD Austin.
Oh, that's why the name sounds familiar.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Very, very talented. During that, he was the intern for Teton Flowers for a bit, and I made some suggestions for his training. And I don't know if he ever applied it because he was self-coached at the time. That's the only other extent I would just note. There's certain people that I've helped with technique. There's certain people who have asked me to kind of look at certain programmings. And like the only instance I've ever suggested something from like more specific bent or programming was like when I talked to Matt Holden very briefly on like these different bench ideas. And like I sent him like an example, like, hey, this is an example. If you apply it, here you go. But they're in the positions that they're in for a reason. They can apply it however they want if they choose to apply it.
Okay. So you mentioned Angelo Fortino, and I've seen you help him at SBD Austin, right? And some other meets? Avancus, yeah. Not SBD Austin, that makes sense. I guess, like, do you have any general tips on improving meet day handling? Like, it seems like he likes having you there.
That was a good luck charm, apparently. So I started helping handle him because he, at the time, was one of Joe's athletes, and he and I also became really good friends. Like whenever he's in Austin, we smoke a cigar together, and whenever I can, like I would have messaged him this weekend, but I know he's in Italy right now, as far as I'm aware. And I think that there's a few things that are go into handling that a lot of people don't really consider. One is if you're handling a stranger, then you're going to have to learn very quickly on how their training is.
It's probably a cat.
Yeah, that's the first. The first thing I want people to do, especially if they're handling a stranger, is like if they have the ability to, is to interview them before their session. And what I like to do is ask what the objective of the meet is. Is it the total? Is it the weight class battle? Is it beating a particular person? Like what that goal is. And I'll set them in different scenarios of, if this specific thing happens, what do you want me to do? And what is going to get you the most confident for your next lift? Like missing on depth or missing a press command, or if I try to aim for this third attempt deadlift, but you don't get it, how are you going to react? And like, I remember one of my interview processes, I think, took about 2 hours on asking all those questions, just because I wanted to make sure that they're ready for the experience that they're going to have. I'm going to take care of you because you are in my stead, or you're in my care. And that's one of the things that any coach can do if they have the time. Obviously, I'm very hyper specific and I'm very peculiar with how I handle. So it's very important for me to know whatever decision I make, the athlete's going to be happy about it. if I make a decision to miss their deadlift to try to go for a podium or go for a placing or to beat a single person, they're happy with it. One of the things that's always disheartening for me is when a coach puts their own needs before the athletes or what their desires are. And obviously we've seen the other way around where the athlete wants something that's just not plausible. And like we have to address those as well. But there's so many coaches that I've seen, whether it's national or international, that make a really bad call because they have to maintain, they're trying to play some game that doesn't exist or is not winnable. I'm always going to put the athlete's needs first. How are they? How do I treat them in the warm-up room? How often do I need to check up on them? How strict I am with them on their, like on how often they go pee or something. How on top of them are on water and food. Like you saw how on top I was on Kai yesterday, and those are all specific things that have to kind of come together. But another thing that I think that a lot of coaches don't do is understand that like there's a lot of thoughts that are going into a meet day. Some people have meet day anxiety, and we've seen that happen I don't know how many hundreds of times. That's why you need to create that comfort zone. I feel like there's a lot of times, especially with the newer athletes, they're going to have that. And they're not going to have the confidence of, okay, I can go for a PR on that third attempt squat. You have to put them in that environment that they're ready for that. And that's why I encourage a lot of coaches to do is just interview them, understand that there's a specific goal for the athlete, put the athlete's needs first. If it's a team sport, like you're going in for points, obviously there's specific situations where those needs might be might be disregarded.
Yeah.
But if an athlete is trusting you to do your job and make sure that you're providing them the service. There is no ego in handling here. Not at least for the coach, that you can't afford to do that. But another thing I think I recommend a lot of people to do is recognize body language. There's a book, it's a very old one, it's called The Definitive Guide on Body Language. Read that book. You'll be able to tell a lot if someone is having anxiety or they're having a lot of confidence just by reading them. And I think that that's one thing that a lot of coaches don't really pay attention to, especially with a lot of athletes who are just nonverbal. Like, how are you supposed to read them without asking questions because they don't want to talk? You got to read the room, you got to read them. That's one thing that I actually encourage a lot of people to do. Read that book, study it, apply it, because you're going to run into an athlete who's just locked in all the time, and you're not going to be able to ask them a single question and get any information out of them. And there's also the athletes that just say, put whatever number on the bar you want. It's like, okay, I can discern by a certain tonnage here that they're confident or they're a little bit scared. You don't hear a lot of people specifically read into that, especially with strangers. So you gotta figure that out, and you have to develop that over time.
Okay.
Pro tip, body language.
Anything else you wanted to ask about meet day or?
Because I have a lot. I'm kind of like known as the guy who handles.
Oh man, I think the body language thing is really important.
Yeah.
Like there was even yesterday, there was some of the people I were handling. I could just tell they were. Well, I don't know a lot of body language, but if they're really showing it, you can kind of pick up. Like, hey man, maybe we don't go for this full set number. You're tweaking a little bit. And there was this one guy I was handling a month or two ago, and I knew him a bit. I didn't know him the best, and whenever we talked, totally cool guy. Everything seems good. He's like, he wants to hit these big numbers at his meet. And then when I'm handling him, he is like super anxious the entire day. And it's like the most anxious I've seen, or like top 3 most anxious moments in handling. And I'm just like, wow, dude, this is something else. This is a whole different thing.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I kind of asked, what are you thinking? And there's like no real response. Yeah. And I'm like, all right, let's just make sure you don't miss, and we'll make the most of it.
Yeah, I think that like there's obvious cases for them, but
yeah, that one was obvious. But sometimes they're harder to see. And I was handling this one guy last week, and the range on squat was 247.5 to 250, and he said like put whatever you want, and I know he really wanted 250, but with some technicalities, I put 247.5, and then after he got it, and afterwards he was like, "Thank God you put that. I really didn't want you to put 250. I didn't want to say it, but I really didn't want you to put 250."
Yeah.
But just through reading the room,
yeah,
I was able to pick up on that.
I feel like a lot of newer handlers, they have to develop that skill.
Yes,
And-
it's a lot of like it's a lot of what's the plan if we feel really, really good. But that feeling, like, how often does that happen?
Yeah. And then I think the last skill, other than like the body language thing, especially for newer handlers, where like if people are trying to get into handling actively, they're going to handle a huge range of demographics that nonverbal, verbal, head cases, among chill. And you have to develop that skill set in order to be able to succeed and provide that athlete with what they want to the best of your ability, as long as it's not far-fetched. But the other thing is time management, which seems to be a really big theme in this podcast here, but it's just like, obviously it takes a lot of experience to say like, hey, I know how to pace things. And whenever a coach kind of shares a sheet and they say, oh, during this time I want them to warm up, it's like that never actually ends up being the case. It's like learn how to pace, and usually that's with time management. Look at your watch, look at your phone,
And that
use it
one
as a tool.
can really adjust on the day with how things are going.
Yeah.
Like if the meet's going fast, if the meet's going slow, if the meet is going fast and then it becomes slow.
Yeah.
There's a lot.
Yeah.
going on.
Yeah.
Time management.
Yeah.
There was someone I was handling recently, and he did his second squat, and the walkout was like really funky. The strength didn't look too bad, but the walkout was terrible. And I'm like, how'd that feel? And he just says, shit. And then that's the whole conversation, and it ends there.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, awesome. let's maybe not
It's
go
like, let's go 10 kilos.
as high as we were planning.
Yeah. There are times where like I don't want to. This sounds bad, but there's sometimes you kind of had to psychologically manipulate the athlete in
You have to like convince them sometimes.
it's just or like I remember this year's Collegiate Nationals, Victoria Ho. I was remote handling, and
We can talk about the remote handling a little bit.
yeah,
Yeah.
because I was remote handling yesterday too.
Yeah.
Just like, hey, put 200 as a bluff. And I was like, nah, just, you know what? Just don't put it, like, we'll put it as a placeholder, but just have her do it. Don't let her know the weight. She pulled 200, 17 and a half kilos more than she ever did. And it gets to the point where it's like, yeah, you've done this weight before. And like, not to like gaslight or anything, but again, trying to put the best circumstances for them to perform as well as they can, because she's going for a placing. I'm going for, well, she dies.
Yeah.
But like there's a lot of athletes out there where you're going to have to like put them into a very psychological circumstance where like you make them believe in themselves a lot more, whether it's from, you know, positive affirmation, imagery, whatever you need to do to get them into that mental space, and they end up showing up. And I've done that a lot. I did that yesterday with Kai. It was just like, it's going to be a fight, but I think we're going to get it. And then 290, he didn't really fight. It's like,
It was good.
well, he was expecting it to be a lot harder, and like you set that circumstance of expectation of it's going to be kind of hard, but like with Kai, he tries much harder if he thinks it's going to be hard. Gets 290 and does that RP 8, easy.
Yeah.
Sorry, Kai. Sorry. Sorry.
They're athletes, they'll do their second or whatever, and it's fine. And then or maybe it's pretty hard.
Yeah.
But
You looked at me like I was crazy when I put
I didn't really have that much faith in Kai's demo, but I don't know his training level. But good job, Kai.
Yeah.
But maybe they like the athlete also feels that their second was hard.
Yeah.
But if you show fear,
Yeah.
then it's game over. And then it's like
Yeah.
But if you show confidence, and it's like, hey, we can still get something really good,
Yeah.
then they won't be in a bad mood for 10 minutes before their
Yeah.
big third.
If I may, also, it's just like obviously this comes with experience as well, but have confidence in your calls and your decision making. There's going to be a lot of times where the athlete reads the coach or the handler and say, he's not sure of this.
Yeah.
I don't know how I'm going to perform.
They can read body language too.
Yeah, they can.
They can-
And it's
pick
pretty
up
obvious.
BS.
So it's just like a lot of the decisions, I don't think there's a decision or a call that I've made that I have regretted, because it's most of the time it goes very, very well, but it's never usually on strength. It's usually on execution, or something happened like, oh, there's a 20-minute rest because lifting cast is down. It's like, dude, why timing now? But yeah, there really hasn't been a decision this year where I've said, I don't know if they can get this. It's like, no, they're going to get it. And you can kind of tell with my, like, especially with a nonchalant demeanor, it's just, no, you're going to get this.
Yeah.
And you can hear the confidence. Like, if you execute well, you're going to do it. And it's just up to the athlete to execute. And there's only been like a handful of misses that I've had from that. Obviously, there's weight class battles. It's just like, hey, I don't know if you can do this,
Yeah,
but we have to
that was a
play the
little
chess
different.
game there. Those are the only times where there's maybe some level of hesitation, but but when it comes to an athlete's abilities, if you have confidence in them, you just put their number down. It's like, okay, here you go. You don't need to know this. You're going to be able to do it. It wears off to the athlete. It's like, okay, they have got a lot of confidence. Let's do this. So have confidence in your decision making. The athlete will be able to read off your confidence, and you'll be able to have a much better time.
Yeah.
And that obviously comes with experience.
All right.
Awesome.
Okay. I guess these next few questions will be towards gym management. So I guess not a super common question, but I do get it like a couple times a year about owning a gym. And they thought about opening up a gym. Like, was there anything that you liked or maybe disliked about being a part of the?
All right, we're gonna spend a lot of time here. So I'll tell you what. There was two different working cultures when I was working at Tyson's and when I was working when I was with Gameday. One of the reasons for those cultures was just because my age difference, where I was 17 to 21 during Tyson's and I was 21 to 26 now with Gameday, with the location. And when it came to like the brick and mortar of like actually building a gym, it's a lot more difficult than you think. Like I know a lot of people, they say they love to work out, but that doesn't necessarily mean you know how to do all these different things.
Yeah.
Like I had to learn carpentry, and I had to learn how to install a toilet and a sink and do all these different random odd jobs. And like I was very fortunate that my dad was like essentially a handyman with this, like he does automotives, he does carpentry, and he does plumbing. I learned a lot of that just by watching my dad when I was younger, and I had that small experience, but who's to say the next gym owner has that gift? And it got to the point where like I don't think a lot of people who open gyms realize you have to do that and you have to learn it in order to kind of cut, I don't want to say cut costs, but cut costs, because sometimes a plumber costs $1,200 when you can probably fix it for $200 if you know the know-how, or you know someone who can do it for or know someone who's in your family or a friend. One of the other things I didn't really like was when you own a place of business, there's a lot of pressure on you. Everything that you do is on the limelight, especially with how public game day was. And
That was like one of the really big powerlifting ones too.
yeah. And it felt like everything I was doing was on a spotlight. And I think that's why for a long time I was not in the spotlight. I didn't want anyone to know who I was. I was just the guy who was there in person. I did the work. That's all you need to know about me. And I would rather form a genuine friendship with someone and a genuine connection through an in-person interaction rather than someone knowing me from social media and then for some reason like having an interaction from there. And that was my mindset back then. Right now it's like you can form it however you'd like. But everything I did was under a limelight. If I had a bad day, which I had a lot of them because I wasn't sleeping, spread through everywhere. If I posted something on social media, more people are going to view it because of people I'm associated with. If I do something really good, people see it. If I do something really bad, people can see it. And there was a large amount of like hesitation from my end of like, okay, if I just work and everyone like has that impression of me, I think people are going to just respect what I do and meet me organically rather than anything else. I didn't post any coaching things because at the time I wasn't as well of an established coach. I just worked. And I think that at a certain point people respected that I just worked. Like that hard effort. But one of the things I really didn't like was that publicity. Like this year I probably was the least in the limelight other than the gym closing, and I showed up to 26 meets. I didn't publicly say that until now. I went to 26 meets, like every single meet I publicize it. No, I hardly do that anymore. And it's just, I'd rather have my work respected for as it is, but because I'm not in the limelight anymore, there's so much less pressure on that. And I felt like I had to be a particular person that I didn't really want to. That ended up not being true because I was just becoming me, and that pressure like does get to some people where you have to fake the smile. Like you have to fake the smile because at the end of the day, your patron, they're coming in to have a good time. They're coming in to train. They're doing stuff with their own. They don't want to come in to see someone at the front desk with a really shitty attitude. And that was for me for a long time. And I think that for a while, it took me time to realize that these people are having shitty days too. That was one of the things I didn't like. The other thing I didn't really like was, and I think Tim and I have this very big similarity, but we respect hard work, but one of the toxic traits that kind of comes with like owning a business is if someone isn't putting in as much work as you don't have, like you have a skewed view of like, what are they doing? Like, why aren't you putting in as much effort as me? And you have this illusion that they don't love the facility as much as you do. So there would be random times where like when we were building the gym, like Sundays were our typical day off. Tim and I would show up and it's like, all right, cool. Let's assemble this treadmill and just be done with it and just do other stuff. And I think that created a really unhealthy view for a long time of like if you don't work as hard as me, then are you really in it as much as I am? But that was such a skewed idea. It's like people need rest. People need to do other shit. People have other jobs. Another thing I didn't really like was that, it costs a lot of money, like a lot of money. Like I lost I invested a lot of money in all those Leica racks and the equipment, and like people don't understand that these things not only cost money to buy, they cost money to maintain. And that doesn't seem to be something that's very comfortable with people, where $50,000 is probably going to get you a decent amount, but if you have 500, you're probably going to be in a safer spot. You had the problem with marketing where you have to battle the other gyms. What is your niche? If you have a niche, is your niche too intimidating? Powerlifters are intimidating for a lot of people. And that was another issue. And it just kind of gets to the point where you have to develop a really big business sense. Otherwise, you're not going to have a good time with running a gym. And I didn't like the anxiety of, we have to pay rent next month. What do we do now? Or what can we do right now so that in 6 months we're okay? And it felt like there's a large, constant anxiety, and that's obviously with all businesses. of like growth, sustainability. And for a long time, I had to think to myself here, like, what do we do? And it was, I think that's the part I didn't like. It really affected my mental health, and that's why I wasn't sleeping so much, because in my head, if I don't do this, we're not going to be able to pay rent next month. Or if I don't do this, this member is going to say this, and that's going to spread all over social media, and then like, oh, Andrew didn't clean the toilet, or like he didn't scrub this floor this day. So like that was, I had an extremist mindset. If I didn't do this, this is what's going to happen. To some members, that might be true. We're like, hey, why is this piece of equipment dirty? And they put it in a group chat or something, and it like that spreads out, and that's why I didn't really like. But what I did really like, and the last thing before we go into the pros, when the gym had closed, it was really disheartening for all of us. One of the things that really upset me was, obviously with all the drama that happened, like there became less and less of a sense of community. Like frankly, it did eventually become a place to train for a lot of people, but by the end there wasn't that much of a community left, to be frank. I had a lot of great relationships with the people there, and I was there literally every single day unless I was traveling, and that was the community that I had. But I remember when we were closing, we got an email, it's like, that said, hey, this is really inconvenient for me. And it upset me because in my head, because of the relationships that I have, there's still some sense of community. And it was upsetting to see, like, you know, some people didn't view it as that way. And that's okay. That's okay. But it's the people that I thought were part of that community that like were making these comments, just like, like you've known me for 3-4 years. You've seen all the hard work that you're doing, and this is an inconvenience for you. Like, this is an inconvenience for me. I'm sorry, I'm losing tens of thousands of dollars on this. You're losing a gym that you can go to Planet Fitness, go to 24 Hour. Like, you can do all of this there. And it got to the point where I did question a lot on what were the genuine relationships that I formed in the gym. And a lot of those people, when I run into them, I hang out with them. Like, I remember I went to Lift ATX during the Avancus meet. No, not the Avancus meet, the SBD Austin meet. I ran into like 6 or 7 of my former members. The first thing they said is, how are you doing? How are you? Like, what have you been up to? And like, genuine excitement. And that was beautiful. Like that. And a lot of those members that I don't really see anymore, or that I saw at the time, they had messaged me, or they saw me during the last days and they would hug me, or like, I remember one of them gave me like a bottle of wine, said, I don't know when you're going to need this, but it's probably going to be the next couple of weeks. Just make sure you're taking care of yourself. And that was a beautiful time. But there was a lot of the other members that were asking, like, hey, is there any update on the gym closing? Like, is there any potential buyers? Like, and that was the question repeatedly. But those same people had never asked us if we were okay. Like, how are you doing? And it seemed like a very selfish endeavor, which I understand, again, but it felt very disheartening because I thought these people were, like, cared a little bit more.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things I didn't like, was just, I had to be very careful. I learned why a lot of my peers had told me, don't get too close because you're going to be disappointed. I'm glad I did get close.
Good.
I did get I'm very close with a lot of them because I have a lot of lifelong friendships I want to have. But there's a lot of people who I know that I'm not going to talk to again because, like, frankly, they just didn't really care about the place other than it's a gym. And they were, like, the friendships that we had were because of proximity bias. And that's okay. Again, that's okay, but it's disheartening.
Yeah.
Keeping it real here, like that, it sucked.
Yeah.
And, you know,
I had some sense of that when Corrupted closed. I was Yeah, that was my home gym. But I can't imagine it from the perspective of you, because like you see these people every single day, like you always have conversations with them, and then like to them it's just another gym, like for them.
I think it was more disheartening for me simply because I was essentially the face.
Right.
Or it's just, I was there every day.
Yeah.
And one of the things that also was just disheartening was like, you know, if I had anyone on my team, are they doing their job? I remember like going in, I would come in at like 2 or 3 a.m. with my girlfriend to clean because the job hadn't been done. And that's what kind of was a lot of the posts, like, hey, this other person didn't do their job. I want to go in and clean. And I would hope that they would see on social media and like say, oh man, Andrew's doing this. I should probably do my job a little bit better. But I didn't have that, like the courage to say you're not doing your job, because I'm not, like they're my friends as well. And I don't want to be a dick to them. But it was really, really difficult. And I saw all the comments on my post, like you were the face and you were the heart, but I'm also the most broken, like physically and mentally, where I remember when we sent out the announcement, there was 3 people in the gym. One of them, his name's Thomas Lee. I saw him, and he's known me for, at this point, 5 years, and I was crying in his arms, and I was like, I'm sorry I couldn't save the gym. And I felt disappointed because I felt I had let everyone down. And he was one of 12-ish people who were still going to the gym that asked me if I was okay. And everyone else who I had talked to, I didn't feel that. And these would be the same people that would see me at 2 a.m. They would say like, oh man, you're working, like this, you did that. It's like, you never asked once if I'm okay. And there are certain people who obviously gave the space and eventually asked for it. But I know a lot of them just didn't actually care, and that's what hurts, because I thought they had cared. And that's with every business, right? That you're going to have like that proximity bias, and you're going to have the great friendships because of that proximity bias, but sometimes it doesn't work out. But the great thing about running the gym was you have a lot of sense of accomplishment in running your own business. Like if it's worth doing, or if we're worth trying, do it. I developed impeccable work ethic because of it. I made a lot of beautiful friendships because of it. The gym allowed me to meet a lot of people who just wanted to do one thing, and was to get stronger and better. And we all had that common goal. And that allowed me to, like, obviously I'm very social, so it helps. That helps with it as well. But I formed a lot of friendships through the gym, and I know people from other states and other cities like yourselves that I can call upon and just say, hey, I met them because of this gym. And it helps a lot. Like that was one of the beautiful things that I kind of came out of it. And I remember I made the post like, was it all worth it? Like living paycheck to paycheck, being hungry, going into 2 a.m. Even though like what I just said, all those cons was really shitty, like there's a lot of personal cost, it was worth it, because I wouldn't have the life I have right now, making the impact that I have, and being able to do things I didn't think were possible without that. And you get a huge sense of accomplishment from that, and you also develop pretty good work ethic. But yeah, also just seeing a place advance, like, and improve and evolve, it's like seeing a child age. Like the gym, like the first location had so many different evolutions, and it's like you have a huge sense of accomplishment, and this is your work. This is a reflection of the effort that you put in, and you get a lot out of that work ethic. But like some people might not agree to that. That's one of the things I loved owning a gym. Every single evolution, I knew that this was going to be a certain benefit. I knew this was going to be better. But there are obviously some people that you can't keep happy. That's one of the cons. Just like you can't keep everyone happy. And sometimes making the members happy is what's going to cost you the most amount of money, or cost you personally a lot.
I know you guys had the Olympic weightlifting section. Did you feel like it was hard to balance that dynamic too with like so many modalities? Of
You guys had a good amount of
strength?
weightlifters there, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, we had a beautiful community. Like
I totally forgot about the weightlifters.
one of the weightlifters, Chris Hamlin, he was the last weightlifter I ever saw. I'm doing a lot of name drops because like these people were very important to me and still are, and I hope they're all doing well. I remember he would ask for certain things. It's like, okay, cool, let's make another platform. Let's do this. You can store this equipment. And that, I don't think the dynamic was bad because I knew most of the weightlifters, or a lot of the weightlifters, and that would be a beautiful thing because strength communities are coming together. The only issue is that I think that there's a really negative stigma with with powerlifters and weightlifters now, where weightlifters used to have the reputation of they're very snobby and they're very elitist. I think that's powerlifters now, to be honest, to general fitness people. And when you have those two communities go together, a lot of them are either going to bond or they're just going to keep their separate ways. We had put them into two separate areas at first, and then we combined it all into one room so that they would intermingle. And they intermingled a lot. Like a lot of them had great relationships. They would hang out together, and it seemed like a really good bond. But there was like 9 weightlifting platforms. The only problem was moving all those platforms. Not on my back. But the strength communities didn't really have a problem with each other. Obviously, that depends on the people who are in those communities. Like there's going to be those people who come in and they're just not good people and they cause a lot of trouble. You just gotta, like, those are the people who just don't bond with the others. But if your true purpose is to come in, the gym is a socialization, and you're open to like talking with a lot of people from other disciplines, I don't think there's ever going to be a problem. Because both communities are trying to do one thing, is to be better.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Okay. Do you feel like you would want to open up another gym?
No.
Oh, okay.
Well, okay. I'll say why.
That was a really good question.
I'll say why, and then I'll say why. In both gyms that I've been involved in, one of the things that I really had a problem with was I didn't know how to relax. Because, again, this is combining my upbringing, my background, my sense of work ethic, and you have to understand that it's all customer service at the end of the day, and plus all the odd jobs.
Yeah.
It takes a lot to be able to be willing to do that, and also know that that's not going to be your primary sense or source of income. Every gym owner that I know, for the first few years, unless they had huge financial backing, they've had another job. They're coaches, they're physical therapists, they're personal trainers. They do some form of other side business, unless they have huge financial backings. And though, like for me, I was coaching at the time, and I was doing some rehab, and I was handling, and I was printing out shirts, which I still do now. So it's you do all that just to make it by. And the expenses were huge and inconvenient at times.
And in a powerlifting gym, those expenses are
they're not great.
Those Leica racks are something.
They're we had 12 of them. So when you put that into a sense of like, there's a lot of personal cost, and I've only learned how to relax, like truly relax, and not have the tendency of like, I need to work right now, otherwise I'm doing something wrong. I didn't have that until a month and a half, 2 months ago. It took me a long time to like figure that out, and it took a lot of friends just telling me to like chill the fuck out. Like, you don't have to work. You don't have anything to work for besides your clients now. You did this for 8 years. You can relax. I don't think I would ever want to have that anxiety again of, hey, if I don't do this, some members want to leave, and then like that's revenue down. Like I had that mindset, but also if someone left, and especially if they were a friend or I developed a relationship with, I'm never going to see them again, or I'm going to see them a lot less, and that hurt me emotionally and mentally, where I don't think I would ever want to create that cost again, simply because I'm invested in the people just as much as I'm invested in the gym, and they invest in the gym. And I've always been in the firm belief that the owners or the management have to know the people. Fortunately, I've always been in that mindset with both gyms, and I suppose that's why I was the face for a long time. But when I don't know if I'd be able to go back to that, because I have a social battery now. I didn't used to have one where it would be constantly drained. Like my battery's at 5% at all times, and be able to live with that for the rest of my life, or however long the new gym would last. But also, fitness comes in waves. Like powerlifting was really popular. Now it's High Rocks. CrossFit was popular, and then the owner turned out to be racist. Now Olympic weightlifting used to be pretty damn popular. Now it's like, I think it's stagnant. I think strongman's becoming a lot better, but they come in so many different waves, and that's just depending on the social dynamic of fitness. Bodybuilding is always going to be there because that's the baseline of every single sport. In order to get better at running, you can squat and get stronger on your legs. Same deal with tennis. You can do a bicep curl, what have you. And that's always going to be the base, but everything else is a niche. Running eventually is going to die down. Everyone can run. A lot of them choose not to. A lot of people can bike, same shit. But I don't like the idea that my success might also be dependent on a trend. Powerlifting was a trend. And now it's just a matter of, I'm trying to just get people into using a barbell, and that'll eventually get them to powerlift down the road. But I think that now, because of the culture in which we're trying to promote powerlifting, which is mostly social media, that's not enough for a lot of powerlifting gyms to survive, because they're only targeting youth people. What are young people most volatile on? Decision making. They want to do what's cool. They want to do what they feel like is healthy. And it's like, hype reels aren't enough. Meat reels aren't enough to support my business. And also, the last thing is, I don't like the fact that I can't really control who goes to my gym. Now, when I say that, I don't mean like any like certain bias with like any groups, but you don't know who's a shitty person. I would learn about a certain member a week later or 2 weeks later because this other member knew them. Like, hey, this person here is a racist, or this person here is
Racism
like a
is
gym
not cool.
creep or something.
yeah, or like there's a creep. And,
Yeah.
That's not cool either.
and like and this is supposed to be a place for safety, and I can't control who comes
Yeah,
in
because
because
we just don't know right off the bat.
they're going to give up their best face possible. But I've had, I don't know how many instances of like, oh, this person's actually a really shitty person, like they've done things that are condemnable, you need to kick them out right now. And like that's happened once or twice, just like, and there's also like, hey, this person might have done something shitty, but am I biased in that they can't change because that was 5 years ago? Like, maybe they change, maybe I need to give them a chance, but I don't want to have that anxiety of like, okay, I want to give them a chance, turns out they're a really shitty person, but like, oh hey, if I give them a chance and they tend to be great, cool, that's still a risk. That anxiety kind of lives like with every single member who kind of joined in. It's just, what skeletons do you have in your closet?
Yeah.
Especially with everything that I've been through, it's just like, you do everything that you're going to do is under a microscope. You do one bad thing to one person, everyone knows what happens. That's just the dynamic of powerlifting. But I love people. And I think that if another person opens a gym and I can see those people, they're going to have that responsibility. That's not my problem. I'll still be able to help wherever I can and give back where I can. Like for Factory Gym, I built their mega platform, and that's the help, and that'll always bring some benefit to people. But having the financial burden of doing that, fuck no.
I like the mega platform idea a lot.
Yeah, the mega platform was
That
Tim's
seemed-
idea.
Oh yeah, that one was a good one.
And then we just implemented it. But I think one of the other reasons why I don't want to build a gym is because it's a thankless job. Like I said again, a lot of the people who at the end who were thankful, they were always thankful to begin with. And there were some people who would say at the end, just like quietly, but I don't think that you're going to get a lot of recognition for being a gym owner. If you're looking for that, this isn't the job for you. But it is a thankless job. You're going to do certain decisions that you think are going to benefit the business or benefit the gym or the members. You might get a thank you for about 5 minutes, and then a lot of it's going to be taken for granted. I remember there was a group of people who took our gym for granted, would talk mad shit about us, and then when we announced they closed, they were like, what are we going to do? And I had to think to myself here, like, that's not genuine. And I don't want to ever have that anxiety again or find out that again. It's not good for your mental health in the long run. Again, I operate very, very differently, and I wear my heart on my sleeve, so it's very different for the operation. But if I was able to just make a place for my friends to train and socialize, that would be the most ideal scenario. But that's also going to cost a lot of money.
Yeah, but to kind of talk a little bit about like the thankless job, that's something that I see from the outside. I've heard it from other gym owners too, like especially in your case where you're like at their 2 a.m. cleaning, you got to maintain all the racks and they don't notice this stuff and then they're complaining. Like that's very disheartening. And like I always appreciate like our gym owner, like he's always putting in a lot of work in the gym. So yeah.
It's not just gym owning, it's also just coaching.
Yeah, right.
That's also a thankless job too. And it's just like
At least with the coaching, it's not as much financial putting money into.
No, not
something.
at all. Like I think that you're eventually going to get the recognition during a meet recap. But like it's very rare where I see a gym owner get recognition for upgrades that they do. Like my old boss Ken, who's owner of Tyson's Playground, I remember when he went from 1 Eleiko rack to 8 combo racks.
Yeah, that a lot.
He had thanks for maybe a week. And then they complain about the platforms that he put them on. It's just like, you have 8 racks to go on. This is the most in the entirety of the East Coast.
Yeah.
People travel an hour here just to have 1 rack. And you're complaining about the platform it's on for 8 different racks. And I remember him telling me, it's just like, do you see how hard I work for the shit I get? And I remember him telling me that most people would rather see him die on his high horse than to see him fall. And I think that's what applies to a lot of gym owners out there, where people would rather see you suffer and in the trenches than try to do something that benefits you. And when you do try to do something that benefits you, it's just like, oh, why are you doing this? You're money hungry or whatever, or we don't like this upgrade. It's thankless. And it sucks because your job is to technically make everyone happy, but it's also to feed your family. And that seems to be an overlooked thing when it comes to your gym owners.
All right. That's a lot of details about being a gym owner. I guess like perspective I didn't really have before. Any questions that you have?
I mean, I'm here to be real and raw. It's just like, this was a lot of things that were never discussed because I had to put on a mask. I had to put on a face of, I might have gone through this shit, but I'm okay.
Yeah.
Because I will do the work that you are not going to do, or you don't have to do. And that's fine. But like, it sucked. Like it sucked for a long time. Like the financial burdens, the pressure from other people, and like also me having to travel all the time. like I would wake up immediately, check my emails, like, did something happen? Did something happen on my group chats? And I remember there was a couple of times where I would have to ask my partner, Ashley, hey, can you do this at the gym really quick? I'm in Chicago right now. I'm in this other city. I need you to do this for me very quickly for the gym. And I, in retrospect here, yes, I have a beautiful partner that helped me in that, but I'm asking my partner to do things for my business. Why? Because she loves me? But what cost did that have in our relationship? And it's just too many sacrifices, a lot more sacrifices than people intend. Again, unless you have financial backing. And then you have to choose what type of owner you want to be. The present one. Okay, if you're super present all the time, you're going to be drained. If you're distant, then everyone's like, where is this person? But they're probably going to be a little bit more mentally healthy. And they don't consider that cost where, like, the crown is heavy. It just happens to weigh like 50 tons. People are never going to understand that certain owners are probably shitty people, and I have to acknowledge that there's going to be bad apples. There's some certain people that also need to operate in a certain manner just to keep the business going. I remember a lot of times where like people would ask, where's everyone else besides me? And I would just have to say, they're paying the bills. It's hard. Like, they're doing whatever they can. Again, Tim would also come in at like 2 a.m. randomly, but he has his own bills to pay. KG has his own bills to pay. They have to do things to survive, and they have to keep this place running. Like, Sean probably has to do that for Rise. Derek has to do that for Imperial. They have to do these things just to feed themselves and their own families. And it's just a very like skewed perception of like, you know, oh, this person might be distant. It's like, yeah, they're going through shit that you don't want to do. Like, I can't tell you how many times that like I became a lot more distant, and I stepped down from being GM because I was ready to like quit the gym and just be done. And I needed a giant break after doing it for so many years. And the cost is super heavy. Because I also needed to pay my bills. Like I remember the first like few months working, I was doing jobs in Craigslist to get $20 for helping this guy move so I can eat. People don't see that. And it's a harsh reality of things where especially with the recession right now, you're going to have a bad time opening a gym unless you have huge financial backing. But the communities that you can make are beautiful, but the cost is heavy. It can be very heavy depending on how you operate.
It all makes a lot of sense. I've heard more often from gym owners, like, don't do it.
Yeah, it's like
it's the money thing. It's just a lot of money. Like, you just add, like, think
blanket.
about how much the combo racks cost, and then think about how much the machines cost, and then think about how much the rent costs, and then think about all of those things you can't think about, and then bam.
Yeah, it's also just like, and this is just like, this is what I also sucks about like owning a gym. If you have business partners, a lot of your decisions are based out of money. If you can't agree to it, you're fucked. If you do agree to it and the members don't like it, you're fucked. And it's just like, I don't like that a lot of the decision making has to be around money, and it can't be about what can truly benefit the community. Like, a lot of the times you see gym owners like make certain decisions, like upping the price or doing this one specific renovation to give more amenities, but that are charged. And then they're like, oh, why are they doing that? They're just trying to get money. It's like, they're trying to pay the rent. And it seems to be this like very skewed perception of like that I used to have when I used to be a regular gym goer, and now I understand everything. Like the struggles.
Damn.
Oh.
Yeah.
I told you I was going to be real.
Yeah. There was one gym I went to, and they closed because of one powerlifting gym I went to closed because of finances.
Kilo?
Yeah, Kilo. And I saw a little bit of this up close, and I was like, oh man, there's a lot more finances to it than I thought. I was just here to SPD.
Yeah, it sucks because there's also like it's marketing. Like
Yeah.
like if you
Like
don't
marketing a powerlifting gym as well.
yeah, and like certain people don't want to go to a powerlifting gym.
Yeah.
There's not that many powerlifters left compared to 2-3 years ago. People are quitting. And I think that if we put us into a spot where like there were more gyms that were more general, but promoted people getting into the fitness space as a whole, powerlifting would be booming again. Not just aiming the youth, but aiming to the middle age, the older people as well. Maybe do some squat workshops. Like, hey, here's a how to squat workshop. I hosted one of those in December of last year. Out of the 15 people who went, 4 of them are powerlifting right now. They never heard of us on social media. They didn't know what powerlifting was. They just learned how to squat. And that gave them a general avenue. And I think that most gyms need to do that to just get people into fitness. And from there, they'll choose their own discipline. But if you're a powerlifting gym and you show them how to do powerlifting movements, they're probably going to be a powerlifter. True. Not to like declare war on like social media on like powerlifting, but it's so one-dimensional. Like we aren't doing a lot to encourage every other person who doesn't have social media to get in. Like my parents don't have social media; they're getting into powerlifting right now.
Yeah.
That was a good point you made earlier about how it's a very young people thing to do. So in a way, like everyone pretty much over 30, we're not selling to.
Well, actually, that can probably be the topic of the next one. I've got plenty of time, by the way. I met a lot of people who got into powerlifting because of social media. But the reason why was because post-COVID, we can go back to the gym again. Oh my God, I can get a barbell in my hands. And this is social, it's cool. And I think a lot of people, like with that rise of powerlifting, started because it's the social thing to do. It was never, a lot of them, it was never about, oh, hey, I genuinely enjoy movement in all facets. Let's try powerlifting because I enjoy moving regardless of how little weight or how much weight it is. It was always the social thing to do. Your friends are powerlifters. Your wife, your husband is a powerlifter. You go to competitions and like there's powerlifters that all bond in together, and that's beautiful. But when you aim at the social media game too much with like hype reels and like I remember like seeing a meet and they're like, oh, this is to give back to the community. It's like, no, you're just trying to promote your gym. I'm sorry, man. If you were trying to give back to your community, you probably would do something else. And I think that there's so many things that are trying to promote powerlifting right now that you can kind of see that there's an ulterior motive. Like this is an advertisement for a particular piece of equipment. Continue on. Holy shit. There's no altruistic way that people give back to powerlifting anymore. And I think that like promotion of meets and promotions of events gets eyes. That's great. But I very rarely hear anyone, and like this is obviously excluding the oddball here, that someone looks at someone's local meet recap and say, I want to do that. And I see more of people getting into it because their friends asked them to, like, hey, do you want to get into the sport? And they're starting to get exposed to it in person, not just you go to a meet. In order for someone to go to a local meet, you really have to know someone who's competing. And it's very rare where you're going to willingly just go to a powerlifting meet versus
It's hard to get someone to get a friend just to tag along to a local meet.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think that like because the social media game is so focused on like the younger people, what about the people who don't consume social media or that it doesn't even register through their reels? And I think that if a lot of gyms, like granted, this takes a lot of time and effort from a lot of people. You do a workshop on how to squat, bench, and deadlift. Because in the grand scheme of things, every strength sport is doing the same thing. Bodybuilding, or not strength sports, but sports that involve barbells. Bodybuilding, Olympic weightlifting, powerlifting, and strongman, we're all fighting over the same demographic, and that's people getting to the gym. Instead of just trying to focus on like spreading that, why don't you also help increase the amount of people who actually enter the gym naturally? and let them choose their own discipline. I think that if we do that and inspire more people to get in there, not only are we going to have a healthier population, but we're probably going to naturally see a lot of people who are not lifting for social media or not are social media driven in their training, but they're also going to be a lot happier. And like, that's not to like diss any like companies that are trying to promote like sport, like certain meets, but let's face it here, a lot of meets are just like a lot of bigger meets are specifically designed to promote a product. But yes, we're giving back to a lot of high level athletes, and a lot of those high level athletes can inspire some people to get in. But if we work as a community as a whole to help get more people into just barbells in general and not try to push the social media aspect, I think we'd be better off in the long term. But again, nobody wants to do it because there's a cost. Yeah. Nobody wants to be truly altruistic with it. And that's a very, very rare thing we're going to see now.
Yeah, I feel like that's such a tough one too. Like getting new ideas to get newer powerlifters, different types of people in the sport. Because you're right, like everyone I feel like is making the same type of content to try to promote something in powerlifting with some agenda, right? Like, you know, and I don't know, like I talked about this with my coach, maybe like even, you know, just even going to a local LA Fitness and then you just being there, right? They, like the average person hasn't seen like someone, you know, squatting even 405 for reps or something. And you just talking to these people, getting them into sport is another way, an avenue. And finding those avenues is much harder now for sure.
I think if we like actually thought about it, like if we put a flyer at a YMCA, a church, somewhere else, and you say, hey, this is a workshop to how to squat. I don't care what age you are. I don't care where, like what background you're from. If you want to learn how to squat, join in. You're probably going to get a lot more people in. But that involves gym closures. That involves like reserving a specific space, which is really difficult. And I think that if enough people do it, you can promote the sport naturally by getting more people into barbell work. But right. Those same people are not going to be social media driven. A lot of the people who are social media driven that get into the sport tend to be the ones who burn out the most.
Yeah, right. Okay. I guess we can move on to our closing thoughts here.
Yeah, we'll wrap it up.
Yeah.
Then I can eat all you can eat sushi.
Do you have any meets planned, or like what are your goals in powerlifting right now? Do you have any?
So I'm going to compete at Powerlifting America Nationals, and then I just want to take it one meet at a time. Like I originally had this convoluted idea that I need to only compete in certain times, but I want to, like right now, training's fun. Like movement is fun. If I want to compete 7 times this upcoming year, I will, because it's fun for me. Like that's always been the goal, and that's what's kind of been driving me in training. In terms of like attending meets, ideally maybe I'll push 27 meets handling, who knows? Like a lot of the meets I had to do this year was I was in the crowd and my friend Kevin handling, and just like, hey, texting numbers or distant handling or something of that sort. But I want to give back to the community that literally gave me everything. Without powerlifting, I'd probably be homeless. And I don't think that a lot of people can say that. You can say that about bodybuilding for a lot of people, but I want to do things for powerlifting, in powerlifting, whether it's if a local gym needs help with replacing carpet or doing this thing, I want to be there to help, not just coach. If a meet needs help with spotting and loading, or a meet needs help with constructing it and I have time, I want to be there to help. If someone wants to learn how to squat, I have my home gym, learn how to squat. And one of the things I wanted to do this upcoming year was like take someone in Austin once a month and spend an hour with them each week for about a month to learn how to squat, bench, and deadlift. There is no ulterior motive. Like, if you want to learn how to squat, bench, and deadlift, I'm going to do that because I want you to learn. I'm not trying to sell you coaching or some shit like that. or like some posts that people do. And I'm trying to give you information so that you can start your journey. Because I know when I was younger, I had my brother, but we had limited information. And everyone who was trying to give us information had some form of ulterior motive, like, oh, they're going to hire me as a personal trainer or whatever. If that happens, great. But that's never going to be my selling point. But I want to actually give, like truly give back in some manner. Whether it's helping that one person out, doing a seminar or something of that sort, whatever. And I'm not really going to do anything to charge. Like when I built the mega platform and factory, I asked for one cigar, and that was it. And that took a long time, a long time. And that's what I want to do, is just make powerlifting not about like promoting some shit, but I want to help bring someone up and help them without that, you know, what's this guy trying to sell me? Or what's this meat trying to sell me here? So I want to do that once a month, except for March, because obviously March we have nationals. I want to take one person in, and in January I want to promote that. And I had a few coaches ask me for like calls and stuff just to pick my brain. I want to be able to do that more frequently. But I don't really subscribe to the mentorship idea where you have to charge. Like, hey, if you want to get better and in something, or you want to pick my brain in something, send me a message and I will jump on a call with you. Like, I don't know how many times you two have seen me just randomly on calls, like on the phone in the gym. Like you see me on a call in the middle of a meet twice. It's like, hey, this is what I want you to do. Obviously, if it doesn't overextend me, but I want there not to be like some paywall or some form of like ulterior motive. Just if you want to get better, or if you want to try to improve on something and you think I can help you, ask. And that's like, and be able to truly give back. I had two friends ask me for that already. All I'm going to do is just have dinner with them, or have a cigar with them, or have a call with them and say, okay, this is what I think I want you to do. Here you go. But I'm going to challenge you as a person to become better. And that's my payment. But other than that, just, I want to actually prioritize being an athlete where I eventually do total more and more and more. But I also want to run a marathon. Like I run 2 miles every single day before my training sessions because I got healthier. And I want to be able to promote to a lot of powerlifters that you can do multiple different types of shit. Like I don't understand powerlifters who only powerlift and feel like they can't do anything else. That's just time management and it's adaptation. Like if I can run 2 miles a day before every single one of my sessions, I think everyone else can too. It just takes time. I want everyone to be healthier and promote health. Like I feel like a lot of the demographic of powerlifters now are, I don't want to say the most uneducated, but they aren't guided in the broad strokes. Like when you're creating canvas, I want to focus on the broad strokes, not the micro details. Because so many people are promoting powerlifting in the sense of, hey, here's a hyper-specific training approach, but nobody's really teaching anyone how to eat. Like food education's piss poor in this country. Or, hey, how do I do this a little bit better, manage my time or stress better? And that helps a lot too. And I want to be able to promote that so that we have a much better base for the next generation of athletes. Because powerlifting for some reason seems to be a very difficult sport for a lot of people, but it's because they don't have the right guidance. In reality, it's squatting, benching, deadlifting, doing accessories. You need to eat and sleep. It's not hard, but a lot of people don't know how to either manage their time well, manage their stress well, eating well, because they've never been surrounded by people who have taught them how to do that. And if they want to learn, just reach out.
Yeah, I actually understand exactly where you're coming from, because I do see a lot of powerlifters try to focus a little bit too much on the nitty gritty of like, oh, maybe you need a little bit more like internal rotation, or this is going to help my deadlift technique. It's like, why don't you just sleep a little bit more, or like learn those skills like meal prepping and like what to eat, those type of things. Will actually get you a lot longer.
Like sleep, eating, like all that. All the broad stroke stuff, it seems very obvious to us because we've been in it for a long time, but it's not obvious for anyone else. But also powerlifting seems to be the one sport that people don't want to improve those external factors on. But if you go in running, people are eating a lot more carbs. They understand that they have to do that. They have to get better running shoes, otherwise they're going to get shin splints. And the powerlifting, I think it's because it's so easily accessible and there's such a low barrier to entry that people have that expectation of they don't need to change a lot. And reality is just, you don't have to change a lot. You just need to improve by 10%. And you're going to be a much healthier human being as a result.
You need to get better today.
Give it 100.
Get better now. Get better now.
10%.
Yes.
But that's what I want to do, is just promote it in a healthy setting, help people who don't really have that, I don't want to say correct base, but
some people just don't know.
Yeah.
Like, don't know.
I had an athlete who did not know how to eat healthy. I had to take him shopping and say, these are what I want you to eat. Here are the reasons why, because he never learned. Or he was never surrounded in an environment to learn. Or he just didn't pay attention in biology class. One of the three. But like, hey,
It's really common.
this is super common, and I would consider it a mental pandemic within our sport, where if we have healthier people, they have better functioning hearts, they have better functioning like livers, they're probably going to be better athletes. And if they're better athletes, they're probably going to burn out a lot less because they're feeling good, like on average, a lot more from a day-to-day basis. And if we set that standard and we hold the torch for them, they will follow. But too many people are subscribing to the idea of, you need to, like, oh, I did this on 4 hours of sleep. This is a badge of pride. If I can do it, you can do it too. It's like, there's a time and place. I think that a lot of the elites tend to do that, unfortunately, whether it's intentional or unintentional. And that's kind of like a call to arms I'd like to make. Just, hey, elites, promote healthy powerlifting. Tell people to eat their fruits and vegetables, to get their sleep, because they're not going to listen to people who don't really have that much of a name. They're going to listen to people who they look up to. And I think that'll get our sport better. But that's my plan. Truly give back as much as I can without compromising myself, of course. But I don't want to benefit out of it other than I know I helped someone.
Yeah. There's
no money. Like, I don't remember the last time I charged to travel for a meet. Which I probably should, because considering I went to 26 meets this year. But I want to give back, truly. But if anyone ever asks a question, I want to answer it. And if they don't get a response, message me again.
Yeah. So I think that's a good way to cap it, because we do appreciate you coming all the way out here for this.
Staying in a nice ass hotel.
But I guess, where can people find you? Close up this podcast.
You can find me on Instagram. It's Andrew_Gameday. And then just send me a message there if you have any questions or just want to say hey. I'm pretty open. I talk to pretty much everyone who messages me, unless it's a spam page. So if you have a genuine question or just want to say hey, just say what's up. Or if you see me or Kevin at a meet, say what's up. And we'll kind of just go from there.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you, Andrew.
Yeah, thanks, Andrew.